Um, you know, my memory is blocked with a lot of that. I would love to know what happened. I would love to be able to talk to guys who can remember, but I had become an animal, really. I didn't have feelings. When you have so many around you that are killed, you don't have time to mourn for them. You don't have time to worry about them. You can't think about them. And this could be somebody that you just had C rations with an hour earlier, and now they're gone. And if you don't stay focused on what you need to do, you're going to die too. And it happens so much in such a short period of time that I had no feelings towards it. I really had become dead inside.
There was another. I want to give another good segment from this interview. I was listening to it as I was driving today. It being Memorial Day, it seems, or Memorial Day tomorrow, Memorial Day weekend. Play this one. I won't play the whole thing, but you'll get the gist of it.
I was in the Central Highlands, which is primarily hilly, jungle, mountainous areas. And sometimes we were in what was called 3 canopy jungle, which are 3 layers of vegetation. It was very thick. And we would use machetes when we were in that type of vegetation. Generally, we tried to get around that vegetation because it was so hard to go through. When we would move through the jungle, you'd have what was called a point man. And the point man would be the guy that was out front, first guy to get killed. And what he would do is he would move along and try to, of course, find the enemy before they found us. But he would also try to find a path that we could move that was in the direction we needed to go, that would be a path of least resistance and yet still provide the protection necessary in the event that we did have a firefight or an encounter. And I was generally, well, that's not true. In one of the engagements in the city of Way, we believed there were going to be tanks, and I carried what was called a 90 recoilless rifle, which has an anti-tank rocket in it, and it's heavy. And I carried that thing for a couple of days until it got shot up when we walked into an ambush, and the recoilless rifle actually took some hits, and we couldn't use it anymore. I carried an M60 machine gun for a couple of days when the gunner I don't know, it was a couple of days or a couple of weeks, I just don't remember, but I carried that for a while. That was kind of heavy. Weighs 26 pounds empty. And then you put a 40-pound pack on your back and some ammunition, and you walk in 110-degree temperatures with 95 or 100% humidity, and you're going up and down this jungle with this thing, and it's hot. You notice it. That was one. But, apart from all that, on a side note, one of the things that I was in awe of was how beautiful the jungle was. It was such I could not believe how pristine the leaves and the plants and the flowers. It was just surreal. It was so beautiful. And I remember clearly thinking, how can all of this insanity happen in all of this beauty? It just didn't make sense to me. And what was the purpose? Why are we doing this? What is it? If we're not going to win this, then why are we doing this? I mean, why don't we go out and save all of this beauty? And apparently someone else higher up the rank of PFC had a different opinion. So I remember one morning.
I'll pause it there. He goes on to say how there was a moment where they're at the top of the valley looking down. The mist is coming, and it's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. And he made the joke that that was the moment of him appreciating nature, was his vacation within the madness and the violence. Everybody should go listen to that interview. The link, I'll give everybody the link. It's on CommuTube. That's Jerry McNally, and the interview was given. Let me see. It was a while back. I started listening to Vietnam interviews because I started looking into next week's movie review, Apocalypse Now, and just started listening to the firsthand testimonials from Vietnam vets. And this interview was given. Well, it was uploaded 3 years ago. And it's well worth the listening. Now, I got to go give everybody the link across the different platforms because I'm using StreamYard tonight so that we don't have an issue when we go to the vivabarneslaw.locals.com after party where it cut 2 weeks in a row. So that's not going to happen again. Everybody, it's Memorial Day weekend. We thank our veterans. We pray for those who have fallen. You should do it every day of the week. At least it should be part of your daily spiritual guidance. But it's Memorial Weekend, and it was a fitting time to actually go listen to firsthand interviews from war veterans, Vietnam in particular. Jerry McNelly died at 83 years old back in 2022, peacefully. And the stories that he told and the insights that he shared in that interview are things that only someone who went through it could possibly have. You need the experiences to have those insights. Now, with that said, people, it's Sunday night. It's Viva Barnes Law for the People. I was going to start with something else, which I'm going to use. I'm going to play the clip now anyhow. We're going to talk about it tonight at some point. But I'm telling you, between The Simpsons and The X-Files, I think we got a glimpse of our future a while back, people, if we were paying attention to it. This is a clip from The X-Files, and the reason why I want to play it is it's going to be good for the sponsor for tonight, the wellness company. But listen to this, people, and bear in mind where we are right now. And then go and bear in mind what we're learning might have been the origin of Lyme disease in ticks. What was the origin of COVID? It wasn't someone eating pangolin soup, it turns out.
Are you familiar with the hantavirus at your mother?
Yeah, it was a deadly virus spread by field mice in the southwestern United States several years ago.
Was it?
According to the newspaper, FEMA was called out to manage an outbreak of the hantavirus. Are you familiar with what the Federal Emergency Management Agency's real power is? FEMA allows the White House to suspend constitutional government upon declaration of a national emergency. Think about that. What is an agency with such broad sweeping power doing managing a small viral outbreak in suburban Texas?
Now that we've all lived through COVID, we can all answer this question in advance. When I found out that we had a quarantine act that was amended in the year 2002 in Canada that basically allowed the government to quarantine healthy people, vectors of diseases, expropriate public property, private property, I learned we were not in control of our lives for a very long time, people. None of us, some of us just actually didn't know it. Listen to this.
You're saying it wasn't such a small outbreak?
No, I'm saying it wasn't the hantavirus.
Well, what was it? What was it?
When we were young men in the military, your father and I were recruited for a project. They told us it was biological warfare, a virus.
What killed those men?
What killed them, I won't even write about. We have no context for what killed those men, or any appreciation of the scale at which it'll be unleashed in the future.
A plague?
The plague to end all plagues, Agent Mulder. A silent weapon for a quiet war. The systematic release of an indiscriminate organism for which the men who will bring it on still have no cure. They've been working on this for 50 years. While the rest of the world have been fighting crooks and commies, these men have been secretly negotiating a planned Armageddon. Which people?
Negotiating with whom?
I think you know.
What I love, by the way, I just saw a comment in here, if I can bring it up, because I can bring it up here. Over on ComicTube, a name with numbers at the end. Viva doing his part to feed the panic. If you knew anything, good sir, first of all, if you think I'm doing more to feed the panic than the X-Files, which reaches a few more people than I do, congratulations. If this was sarcastic, I didn't get it. I had on Jessica Rose about a week and a half ago. We talked about the hantavirus. Jessica Rose, PhD, computational biologist, said she doesn't think that this virus is going to be the one to spread the way, some people who want pandemics to spread would spread, because it has a high fatality rate and doesn't spread all that easily. It kills too quickly and doesn't spread as easily. But if you think that I'm doing the one spreading the panic after having lived through COVID, congratulations, sir, with numbers at the end of your name. You haven't learned anything from COVID. And when the generation of people that learned from COVID, forget, move on, they're going to do it again, and they're going to rely on the ignorance of the next generation. Now, with that said, people, because I want to thank our sponsor for tonight's show, which is none other than the Wellness Company, peeps. Let me get to it. Our sponsor of the evening. You've probably seen the headlines about the cruise ship outbreak. 3 deaths so far, multiple confirmed cases, and now U.S. travelers are being monitored after exposure to Andes hantavirus, the only strain known to spread person to person. You'd know that if you watched my episode with Jessica Rose. And there's the scary part. Hantavirus can incubate for up to 8 weeks. People can live without symptoms and unknowingly spread it across airports, cities, countries before anyone realizes what's happening. I'm not here to spread fear, people, because now you know, by the way, also, it's not going to necessarily be the virus to be the next COVID pandemic, whatever that was. We all know what that was. You put a little L in there and you're going to understand. But the last pandemic taught us something important. When a new virus appears, the healthcare system gets overwhelmed. Pharmacies run out of prescriptions. They get prescriptions get delayed, denied. Clinics get slammed. That's why I recommend having a contagion emergency kit from the wellness company already at your home before you need it. It's not about panic. It's about preparation for uncertainty. You can order online. It comes with doctor-prescribed medications like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Tamiflu, AZ-Pak, budesonide, and even a nebulizer for respiratory symptoms. So instead of scrambling when the next outbreak hits, you already have critical medications and respiratory tools at hand, ready to use. Head over to twc.health/Viva. It'll get you $33 off, 10% discount plus free shipping. And it's in the link. Check it out. Do you guys hear my dog barking? I'd have to go see what he's barking at. twc.health/Viva. And the link is in the description. Oh, I just put Barnes in here. Now, before we get going, peeps, let me see that we are, in fact, good and live across all platforms. It looks like we are good and live on Viva Fry, on Rumble. We're live. Give me 1 second. Manny, are you okay? Oh, jeez Louise. All right, never mind. I thought the dog was, trying to tell me that there's a fire in the kitchen. There isn't. He's just harassing Winston. Let me see what I was talking about over here. We're live on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. We're going to do things a little different. I like to take the feedback from the crowd. We're going to read all of the locals tipped questions in the after party. Unless anybody objects, I'm going to make sure that we're not missing any of the tipped questions on CommiTube. And I'm going to read a couple of the tipped questions over on Rumble before we get started with a banger of a show tonight, people. Oh, hold on 1 second. Hold on. I have something. Oh. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I had to get that out of here. I hear something in the backdrop. All right, let me bring up the Rumble rants over on Rumble. Sean 487. Question for Barnes. Viva, question for Barnes. Why Massie not via for the Senate as an independent? In primary, you get right-wing voters. In the actual election, he may defeat Republican with support from independent voters. We'll get there in a second when Barnes gets in here, and I'll leave this one up in the back. Sweaty Zeus says, fact, total race spending was $32 million. Yes, but Massie had more funding than E.g. Ed Galrain and 94% out of district. He lost because people in the district remember him voting to increase the debt limit under Biden. I don't agree with that. First, I'm not sure. I looked it up, actually. I think it was 25 million, give or take, from APAC-related entities. I looked it up during a stream last week, and it was, it added up, and it was, in fact, a lot through APAC entities, but I reserve the right to be wrong on that, and if I am, I'll correct myself. Sweaty Zeus says, but then crying about the debt under Trump. Also, he was MRH1B. I'm okay opposing Trump on H1B, but Robert always forgets his guys, loves H1B. Wrote a bill to increase it also. Okay, let me see if we get over here on, I want to see what's going on YouTube so that I can get to the tip questions here. Make sure we haven't forgotten any of these. And then we see here, KC98501 says, Viva, you need to watch Roy Benavidez Medal of Honor speech. Well, I'm going to actually screenshot that right now. And to tell everybody what I did over the weekend before we get started, and let me make sure that I've sent. Yeah, no, Barnes is there. Okay, hold on a second. I went to a farm yesterday. I'm going to put together a short vlog. People have been asking for more, of the non-political stuff to get out of the cesspool that is, global politics. I went to a farm. It's a pick your own peaches farm. It's called Graham Farms in. I'm going to forget the name of it now, and it is. First of all, I'm not to get a little spiritual. If you want to get closer to, if you don't believe in God or you have trouble saying that you believe in God, you want to get closer to the beautiful essence of nature and the awesomeness of nature, I think get a farm, work on a farm, go to a farm. I went to this farm. It's a member of our community who's been following for a long time. And when you milk a cow, you immediately begin to understand the intricacy. I mean, if you haven't watched a caterpillar turn into a butterfly, that'll also do it. You start to understand the intricacies of the beauty of the world in which we live through the udders of a cow. Listen, watch this. All right, people. I'm at Ram Farms in Central Florida, and there's this beautiful cow, and we're going to milk her, and I've learned the technique already. Just say you grab a little bit like that, and then you just squeeze it. See the milk? Look at that. That's really nice.
Good cat the camera.
Kids squirt at the cow.
Okay.
When you understand, and yes, everybody, we made sure the cow was very, very friendly and wouldn't be kicking. You feel the udders of a cow, and they're hard and leathery. Why? Because if you've ever felt the tongue of a baby cow, you would understand how rough that tongue is and how leathery and rough the breast needs to be. You understand this beautiful cow produces this milk for her calf, and it needs to come out one way or the other. If the calf doesn't get it, it's going to build up and start squirting out. You understand working with the creatures of God, and you feel the thing. You can feel the milk, and you squirt out. What are you squirting out? You're squirting out the most nutritious, nutrient-dense fluid of life that this baby calf needs to survive. You go and you look at the peach trees, and the fact that they produce fruit from their branches, and the sweetest, tenderest, juiciest fruits on earth. And as we were there, and as we're coming home, there was the most wicked thunderstorm you had ever seen. And it's I say, heaven on earth in the beautiful free state of Florida. Watch this.
You have to keep it violently reasonable. Are we gonna go this direction, or should I try to go the other way?
Drive. Just drive.
Look at that.
Goodness.
Now I am scared.
You have to keep it violently reasonable.
It's amazing.
We're gonna
It's
go
amazing.
This direction, or should I try to go the other way?
Drive. Just drive.
Oh.
Hey, can you understand? It's just balancing the disbalance of ions, and it's a bolt of lightning. I mean, it's just it's out of this world on this earth. It is our earth. It's a thing of beauty, and more people should get out there, see it. And I'm gonna go back to trying to put more of that stuff out there, but it's not always easy because you gotta keep up with the news and make sure you know what's going on in life. People, let me get to a few more of these chats before we get in and get on with the show tonight. KCAP1234 says, why not run the census now with the citizen question? Constitution says within 10 years, doesn't say it can't be more frequent. If the census matters for Republicans, let's go. Sweaty Zeus says, okay, then we got that. And just a few more, and then we're going to get going with the show. I see Barnes's chair. I hope someone hasn't nabbed him. We're going to go on over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com and just see what's going on here. I see Chris Kraft in the house, and I'm going to see if the chat wants us to do these only after the show or at the beginning or throughout the show. Bill Brown says, will most likely be my last week here. I've enjoyed my time. I've had a blast chasing away the trolls, but I can't start feeling like I'm making anyone I actually like uncomfortable. I'd rather just remove myself and make everyone feel safe here again. This has to be sarcastic, Bill. My subscription runs out this month, so I'm just going to let it expire and wish everyone I've gotten to know and respect here the very best. Bill, I'll text you afterwards. Chris Brown says, love you, Bill. Please stay, Commodore Chris Kraft. Bill, please stay. Do what you need, sir. We're always here with you. Bill Brown says, this is Memorial Day. Why do we come here every Memorial Day and just stand here alone? To which his dad says, we're not alone. All right. Well, we're going to start with a story out of Canada, which also requires a bit of a video to fully appreciate what's going on. You all know the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. It's state-funded propaganda. I mean, nothing shy of it. And there's a bunch of other entities that get either direct funding from the government or indirect funding from the government operating as charities. If you haven't heard about this story, it's been sort of a brewing scandal of the CBC. The CBC, in conjunction with APTN, that's the Aboriginal People's Television Network, they joined together. APTN is allegedly a charity, and they banded together, pun intended, to do a mock documentary of sorts, something along those lines, a la Borat. And they invited two prominent conservatives to, among others, they also invited members of the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, to utterly humiliate them, embarrass them, and make them look like idiots. We don't know what the final product looks like just yet. One of which is Lindsay Shepherd. Now, I'll get there in a second and explain who these characters are. Listen to what the CBC is doing up in Canada. State-funded propaganda that is now actively engaged in not just propaganda, but propaganda that is intended to demonize individuals who are representatives of the conservative persuasion. Listen to
So
this.
fake names, fake premise. And what's the point of all of this, Lindsay? What have you figured out that they are trying to do with this production they're pretending is a documentary series on Canadian history and historical figures?
Right. I mean, both Francis and I noticed that this had no lighthearted element to it. This was not a prank show where you could shake hands afterwards and, oh, that was so funny. And yeah, you really got me. No, this was humiliation. They sought out people whose views they disagree with and they want to embarrass. And that is who they set their sights on. And this was all just a trick. They wanted to waste our time. They want to make us look bad. I mean, I can already tell what it's going to be, right? For me, part of the job that Mike Smith, as Francis also encountered and filmed, Mike Smith was my employer at Heritage Figures Canada. He had me dig up some historical Sir John A. quotes. He said he was going to program the quotes into a children's toy. And so I found him some quotes. But then when I get there to the studio to film the second interview, they choose the worst of Sir John A. Macdonald's quotes. And then they just kind of watch to see what I'll do. And then they're going to, play pre-recorded footage they got of me saying, I endorse this toy, because that was part of the job, is I have to say, I endorse this toy. So they'll play the racist, the worst quotes, and then have me endorsing the toy. That's the humor element.
Humor. So for those of you who don't remember, Lindsay Shepherd, Canadian author, columnist for the True North, former communications director for BC Conservative Caucus. You may remember her from 2017. She was Wilfrid Laurier graduate student, teaching assistant. In a communications class, she showed students short clips of a TV Ontario debate featuring psychologist Jordan Peterson. I'm reading a summary right here, discussing Bill C-16, gender identity and pronouns. This was when I first came across Jordan Peterson. And she recorded the conversation and it led to a student complaint where she was basically censored for what she did. I'm going to bring Robert in right now, and he's going to tell us what he thinks about this. Robert, sir, how goes the battle?
Good.
So you must have heard about this coming out of Canada, and I'm saying, like, I don't give legal opinions anymore. I'm not allowed because I don't have a bar. Some of that is reserved exclusively for members of the bar, the members of the bar. I would, however, venture to say that what they did in the context of that interview, where they duped through fraudulent representations Lindsay Shepherd and the other lady on the left, I forget her name now, but she was, oh gosh, I forget it. They duped them into this Borat type situation where they get them, Lindsay Shepherd, told her she had a job, was going to endorse a product that was going to be a John A. Macdonald doll, and then using state funds, maliciously mislead them into giving an interview. And I think that there's something criminally, potentially, civilly actionable in all of that, especially up in Canada, because people laugh at the, defamation in Canada can be true if it's done with the intent to mislead and damage reputation. That's exactly the circumstance that they're talking about. Well, she did actually say this, and now we're going to twist what she actually did say so as to defame her, to destroy her reputation. There's criminal or civil misrepresentations that are going on in there. The scandal is sort of in the midst of brewing now because the CBC hasn't put out the final product of whatever the hell they put together with the APTN. But Robert, anything like that happens in America, where someone sits there and says, come and sit down for an interview. We're going to give you a job. We're going to give you an employment. We're going to remunerate you so that we can then take everything out of context and totally humiliate you. Civil, any potential criminal action if this were in the States or civil?
Well, sometimes there are criminal fraud statutes that apply. Yeah.
They're going to do it. They're going to find out the hard way. This is going to be a case of faff. Did I just kick my camera? Holy crap. Hold on 1 second. Let me do this. Okay. Robert, sir. How you doing?
Good.
We got one hell of a show tonight. I'm just gonna keep my camera like that. What have we got on the menu for the evening, sir?
Assuming I fixed any boomer issues with the tech, sound and everything okay, let me know.
It sounds. I haven't heard crackling yet.
Okay, yeah. It's all about the gain thing. I can't figure it. Again, I'm not a boomer. I just play one on technology. We have tonight Elon Musk loses the case against OpenAI. We got a couple of speech civil rights cases. One concerning a person who put up a meme in Tennessee and ended up in jail for 37 days. He just got a big civil rights settlement for that. And another one that was threatened with criminal prosecution for criticizing her local water problems in the local community. The DOJ attorney, the managing attorney in a district that resigned recently, we have some backstory there, now indicted for trying to get the Jack Smith Special Work Council report that had been sealed out. The SCOTUS, we got Cuba foreign immunity. We've got the Trump Eugene Carroll case delayed again. And we've got the death row, another death row case where that they decided not to take it up, but there were very vociferous concurrences and dissents to not taking up the full petition. The DOJ keeps losing voter rolls cases. They've filed about 30 of them, and I think they've lost 8 now, and it looks like that's going to be the pattern. We'll get into why and what that's all about. We've got big tech. Ken Paxton is suing Facebook over its WhatsApp encrypted. Not so much, at least not from WhatsApp and Facebook itself. Shock that there's another illegality concerning Zuckerberg's Meta. Fluoride in the water. The EPA has decided that they want that fluoride in the water. Another Maha betrayal that they win at the Ninth Circuit, unfortunately. Robert Kennedy announced a PrEP Act that got real controversial. Turns out it's much ado over not a lot, though I do know somebody, a good friend of mine, who kept telling me, Robert, that PrEP Act is unconstitutional. We might talk about who that lawyer was. He might be named Robert too. We've got a couple involving Trump. Trump decides to give him, his family, his businesses, all immunity from the IRS and $1.7 billion check or so. We'll get into that. We'll get into all the Trump corruption cases that they're now investigating already in Congress and preparing for when they take over the House and likely the Senate in the fall. We've got a likely Hatch Act violation by Secretary of War Hegseth, all to try to make sure that Thomas Massie couldn't stay in the House of Representatives. We'll break that down. And, Raul Castro. We're busy indicting foreign officials. Maybe we're going to go kidnap him. The guy's like 95. What is that indictment about? And I think there's one more. Make sure I get them all. Hawaii is proposing an election law that it believes can get around the restrictions of Citizens United to try to ban all the dark money and corporate money flowing into politics. Will it work? So that and your questions here on Law for the People. And I think, we might try out this time. We'll see. This was a recommendation from the board, and then we'll maybe do a poll later in the week. But maybe we do all the tips and comments at the end of the show to see how that works, see how people like it, don't like it. We'll do a poll at vivabarneslaw.locals.com board and see which they prefer. But maybe we'll experiment with it tonight. And don't worry, we have fixed our boomer issues. There will indeed be an after party this time around.
Yeah, this is hell. I say the only thing some people might get a little irritated. It's going to be for locals only, but it's not going to be for locals supporters only because of the StreamYard capacity. So Rumble Premium, if you're going to be pissed that you're going to not get it's not behind a paywall. I'll give everybody the link, so you might want to go and just become members at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Now, Robert, I'm going to start with the elephant in the room. And got to do it. You know you're not going to hear the end of it, although I don't think it's quite as bad as how people are going to spin it. But your final prediction was over 100,000 votes and Massie wins. Now, you got half of that right.
Well, both are actually underdog picks, so those that took both made money. I did not make money because I had much more on Massie winning than the turnout being over 100,000. There are a bunch of trolls online. They're all the kind of Israel lobby kind of trolls that libel everybody, like the 0 Hour and these other people. And they decided they all pretended to have bet me on Massie. course, none of them had bet me on Massie. They're just making this up. Well, my favorite thing was the 0 Hour, who I blocked for like a year because all that guy does is make crazy stuff up, fake stories, libels people. He's an anonymous account, so you have no idea who he is. And he was like, Barnes, bet me and 10,000, and then he blocked me when I went to collect. It was all made up. But you have all these idiot nitwit Trump-tard trolls that, and again, not everybody that supports Trump is a Trump-tard, but if you're one of the dear leader, I change my positions whenever Trump does, then you're a Trump-tard. Just made up all this ridiculousness.
Well, I looked, and because I wanted to see, I didn't, I knew that you had offered the bet. If no one took you up on it, well, they lost an opportunity.
Yeah, I did. They did. In
but
fact,
I
offered
tried
it again.
to go see Zero.
I said, hey, look, if you bet me, you could have made money. So open for everybody out there. DM me on the midterms. Surely you're smarter than Barnes. Look, I just lost on the Massie bet. You should bet me on the midterms now. And some have. Some have proposed that Republicans are going to gain seats in the House. I think that's a real smart bet for you folks. Just DM me, because I believe that some people need to be separated from their money for the sake of humanity. And some of these people fit that category.
Robert, do you have any idea why an account changes their name 31 times on X?
The dude is a troll who libels and makes up fake news. He made up like a half dozen fake stories during the Iran war. I blocked him because he brings in all these trolls. But I'm still getting barraged by these trolls.
Why is he followed by AAG, Harmeet Dillon, Warren McCommon? That kind of,
what might that be connected to? I wonder if there's, I don't know, the lobby that everybody's pretending not to talk about being connected to the Massie race. Indeed, you do an interview with Dr. Drew, and you guys are suddenly being accused.
Robert, it's the craziest thing on earth. For those of you who don't know, I was on. First of all, most people don't tend to comment on a Dr. Drew episode. I've been on his channel I don't know, more than a dozen times. We talk about Thomas Massie, and Drew has the audacity to call Massie, I think he said genius or very smart, intelligent, compliment his intelligence. I go out and say, I was compelled to, come out in defense of Massie only as a protest or to stand up against the malicious, slanderous, campaign against him. And people are calling it Jew. They're calling Drew a Jew hater now. Do people not know that Drew Pinsky is very, very Jewish and proud of it?
Jew talks to Jew, and they're both self-hating Jews simply because they point out the obvious. It was amazing to me. So you got Mitch's bitch, Scotty there over at CNN. For those that don't know, longtime Mitch McConnell guy, who as soon as Massie announces his speech and makes a joke about he couldn't find Ed Galrain in Tel Aviv, it took him a little while. And his response, how dare he talk about the Israel law? That's anti-Semitic. And then you got that loser Blake Neff over at the Turning Point Charlie Kirk show, which they really should just rename it, call it the Not Charlie Kirk show, the opposite of Charlie Kirk show, and at least be honesty and truth in advertising. He is retweeting people saying that Massie is anti-Semitic. And because Massie's talking about the role of the Israel lobby, and they're all pretending it's right. AIPAC took credit immediately for the result of the election. AIPAC spent a record set of money to defeat Thomas Massie. Everybody knows the Israel lobby took out Thomas Massie. And then it was, no one can talk about it. If you talk about it, that elephant in the room, then suddenly you hate all Jews. Even though a majority of American Jews oppose Bibi Netanyahu, have an unfavorable view of Bibi Netanyahu, and oppose the Iran war, and oppose what Iran's doing in Gaza. Israel's doing in Gaza, and oppose what Israel's doing in Lebanon. So this isn't a Jewish issue. This is a Israel political issue of them buying a congressional seat and then bragging about it to the whole world. And then the so-called conservatives running around smearing anybody with anti-Semitic labels if they simply point out the obvious of who bought the seat. They even did an after. To give you an idea of what a nitwit Blake Neff is. First of all, Blake Neff is the guy who got fired at Fox when he was writing for Tucker Carlson because under an anonymous account, maybe he's the 0 Hour account. Under an anonymous account, he loved to make racist comments, misogynist. Just all kinds of really gross, disgusting stuff. So that's the guy running around accusing Thomas Massie of anti-Semitism, which is absurd and insane. This is getting ridiculous and preposterous. That level of irony, and then you have on top of it it starts becoming a talking point. So that even Andrew Clavitt at Turning Point, when Massie Massie has a great way of asking Grok, hey, Grok, is there a connection between the Charlie Kirk show and the Salem Media Network? Grok says, yes, it is. And he goes, is there a connection between the Salem Media Network and the Israel lobby? Oh, yes. The head strategist for Salem Media Network to influence Zoomers is a registered foreign agent with a $6 million contract from the Israeli government. And then Andrew goes in, he's like, Salem Media? What? I don't know anything about that. I helped co-found it. Well, why are you so obsessed with Israel, Tom? Just making stuff up. There's a lot of other lies they've been telling the build up to this campaign. That I'm done with. I'm done with them, done with the show. Don't trust any of them. There's a lot of lying that went into this. Which I'll detail in more in the bourbons this week at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. But it was just this whole campaign to, if anybody pointed out the Israel lobby's role in the campaign that they themselves were taking public credit for, that you would be labeled an anti-Semite and smeared, and even making up the most ridiculous lies. So, I mean, the fact that Charlie Kirk show used to be on Salem Radio, now isn't, used to be exclusively with the Salem Podcasting Network, now has multiple podcasting networks, doesn't change their longstanding relationship with Salem Media. So his response to Thomas Massie, Andrew's response, was just a lie. And then he kept double downing on the lie. Or coming back, well, it's only like this. Well, they sell ads. Well, because I kept pointing out, here's Salem Media saying you're on their podcast network. They sell ads for us. I mean, come on. You just quit lying. Getting this barrage of lies against one member of Congress is outrageous. It was politically suicidal for the Republican Party to do. Thomas Massie's going to be fine. If he got reelected to the House, he's going to be stuck in a Democratic House for the next 4 years. That was no bonus. So now he gets to have fun the last 7 months. They announced this morning, before he's done, that if the Justice Department doesn't take action on the other members that were criminally implicated in the Epstein list, he's going to list them all on the House floor.
But let me ask you this. They have speech and debate immunity clauses. Why hasn't he done it yet? And the question is this, is he sort of announcing this so that something can be done to muzzle him from being able to do it? So he'll say, I would have done it, but I got a court order or whatever.
It's solely, he's trying to get the Justice Department to do their job. He's like, you do your job, and I won't be obligated to be the person to disclose this information. Because you should do it in the Justice Department. You should disclose all the information. You should prosecute anybody criminally implicated. If you can't, explain why and how to Congress and the world. But if you're just not going to do your job, if you're going to, Blake Neff is so dumb. He's telling people Epstein pedo connection. What? That's made up. He's out there gaslighting people on something. Charlie was deeply invested in the Epstein file disclosure. That's what a disgrace Blake Neff is. I mean, nobody likes the guy. I mean, why he needs to be behind the cameras, not in front of cameras. But the gaslighting is just getting off the charts. That's what Massie's always said. He has said that if you do your job, I don't have to be the one to try to do it for you because I'm a member of Congress. I can only do it. I have limited efficacy, limited power, and is affording them an opportunity to do so. And has repeatedly asked them for information. Tell me about this. Tell me about this person. Why is this person in? Why is this person out? And they won't disclose the information. And if they just refuse, it's like, okay, if they don't do their job, it's a motivation leverage tool on the Justice Department to do their job. But I suspect the Justice Department will not do its job. But he may run for governor. He may run for president down the road. He may run for the U.S. Senate down the road. In fact, now he's freed up from doing so because he doesn't have to be stuck in the Democratic Congress where he can do nothing except, wave at the sky. So all they really did was antagonize the libertarian part of the base, the Maha part of the base, the fiscal conservative part of the base, the anti-war part of the base, saying they were so glad and so proud that they ran him off because they could buy an election with boomer cons. And unless you're as dumb as razor-fisted, then you would know that come general election, even most of the boomers are not boomer cons. And so boomers make up about 30% of the midterm electorate. They make up to half or more of a primary electorate. But the boomer cons, in other words, boomers that are conservative, that are partisan Republicans, that rely on Fox News and Newsmax, and it's not all boomers. If they were boomers that relied on podcasts, they voted for Massie. If they were boomers who relied on talk radio, they voted for Massie. If it was boomers who relied on internet sites for information, they voted for Massie. It was only the boomers that said their primary source was Fox News or Newsmax that voted 40, 50 points against Massie. Based on, these people believed AI videos were real. I mean, that's who these people are. So, but they're about 10% of your November electorate, and even smaller in swing districts around the country. So the good luck with that razor-fisted when it comes midterm time. We'll see how all that goes. But I think it was, Hegseth clearly violated the Hatch Act because he was labeled, his label was included in the marketing for the event, and he referenced it at the event, and he apparently used government resources to get to and from the event. That's what you're not supposed to do within the Hatch Act, because the point is, don't leverage the authority of the government to support or oppose a candidate. That's what he did. But Hegseth has got bigger impeachable offenses on his list, from corruption to war crimes. So I don't know if that's going to concern him all that much. But all to take out Massie, the sole representative of a lot of certain causes around the country, to do what? To achieve what? So that the Israel lobby could tell everybody they can buy our seats of Congress anytime they want, just like they've bought and paid for our president, who is a puppet of Bibi Netanyahu, who the Iran deal is already blowing up as we speak. Because once Trump heard from Bibi, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, Bibi. I'm so sorry. Because he's such a wuss at heart. He's not only going to go down as one of the dumbest presidents we ever had, he's also going to go down as one of the weakest presidents we've ever had, as Bibi just walks him like a little doggy. And so now we're going to be back at risk of war on Memorial Day weekend in Iran because Trump can't stand up to the Israel lobby.
The funny thing is, I'm only getting in live time the comments from YouTube, CommyTube, which is very funny. I'm bouncing back and forth to Rumble. The one thing I want to highlight is whether or not you agree, because I can see people. First of all, people are calling you Barnes is paid for, and I don't know by whom you think.
Confession through projection.
No,
go to the Salem list. I'll give an example. Turning Point, Charlie Kirk show kept putting on Alex Marlow. I know Marlow. I know him way back at Breitbart. Here's the facts about it. Marlow is part of the Israel lobby, longtime advocate on that side of the aisle. Rebecca Mercer owns the Breitbart, has long been affiliated with the Israel lobby, and is deeply in bed, we'll get into this later, with all the different corruption schemes the Trump administration is running. So they have him to talk about Thomas Massie. It's like that's not a straightforward, honest presentation. Even though everybody at Turning Point knows 80% of their base supports Thomas Massie, but they spit in his face because they want to suck up to Trump, because they don't have the guts. I mean, for example, the guy who originally thought Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's murder was Andrew Clavitt himself. He was the one giving those text messages to people. And then when Joe Kent comes out against the war, he somehow suggests Joe Kent must have leaked it. Andrew, it was you, and everybody knows it. But then he ran and hid rather than deal with that because of the blowback from the Trump administration. Just kind of wussed out, frankly. All of this is, but they accuse everything. Oh, Tucker Carlson must be taking money. No, all the people critiquing him are the ones on the take, on the grift.
I got to bring it up because, what's amazing is people are saying they're calling you, they say you've gone off the rails in terms of being anti-Israel. The irony is 2 years ago, they were accusing you of being a Zionist. And whether or not you've had something of a shift, people can say they can agree with it or disagree with it, and they can agree that there might be good reasons or bad reasons. But at the very least, there has been 2 years or 3 years in between people calling you a Zionist to now people calling you anti-Israel. Whether or not you agree with any of the statements, I looked it up. It was, in fact, about 15.8 million that came from AIPAC or AIPAC-related entities. Whether or not you agree with the sentiment, if you sit there and pretend that AIPAC themselves, after the election, did not tweet out, "Congratulations to U.S. SEAL Ed Gallarain for defeating anti-Israel incumbent Thomas Massie. Pro-Israel Americans are proud to back candidates who support a strong Israel-American alliance and help defeat those who work to undermine it." Now, bear in mind here, they're not saying they did anything. They're just saying pro-Israel Americans. That might not be them. You scroll up. I thought these were, and I talked about it last week, I thought these were trolls or voters across America sent a resounding message tonight. They support Democratic and Republican candidates who view a strong U.S.-Israel relationship as an American interest and reject those who focus on attacking. Let me just go back here because I want to bring up the right one here. Here we go. Ed Galrain's victory in Kentucky and Clay Fuller's win in Georgia ensures two outspoken pro-Israel voices are positioned to fill seats previously held by outspoken detractors, Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Our community was proud to help pro-Israel. Now, so I can see what they're doing. They're going to say, our community, so we're not taking credit for it, even though it's on record that AIPAC and AIPAC-related entities gave 15 some odd million dollars against Thomas and pro-Ed. But if you don't understand why people feel the way that they feel and pretend that they have no good, at least evidentiary record to substantiate those beliefs, they are going to then say, not only are you doing it, you're gaslighting me. I was talking with someone, I don't remember who it was now, where they said, well, AIPAC can't really take credit for that. I mean, they're trying to take credit for it, but they can't take credit for it. Who was it? It was last week. And I said, you're telling me not, I don't know what they think behind the scenes. I know what they're telling you and I know what they've done. And whether or not you think it's normal, it's good policy, whether or not you say it's less than what Qatar gives, I mean, this has been disastrous, this campaign, because it's not going to quell anybody's concerns about, not say foreign interests, but rather even citizens who are within their rights to do it, prioritizing based on foreign relations with a foreign country that is an ally that people consider an ally. But to write it off and say it's not happening when they're literally saying it's happening and it's a good thing is how you get a gaslighting that further divides, and I would say almost by design.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if a China PAC had said the exact same thing AIPAC said.
You'd be having people call for jail, but they're going to say, Robert, China's not an ally. Israel is an ally. And if you had Ukraine
China hasn't
doing it,
dragged us any stupid wars. China didn't destroy the MAGA coalition, the Trump 2024 coalition. China isn't dragging us into all kinds of foreign aid to China. That's Israel, Israel, Israel. And right now, they just sabotaged for the fourth time a peace agreement that Vice President Vance had helped negotiate. So
let's flesh this out, because I'm not going to bring up the tweet by Mel K, Village Crazy Lady. She's been on the channel. She is, I mean, she would be proud to say, or at least not deny, that she's very critical of Israel, and some will call her anti-Israel. Some will even call her anti-Semitic. I'm not using those words at all. She's very critical of Israel. She put together a timeline, which was Trump coming out. And again, I'm getting into that black pill, position of resignation. I'm just, there's nothing to add. There's nothing to detract. I'm not going to go sit there making fun of everybody who the day before yesterday was saying this is Nobel Peace Prize winning peace agreements. Now they have to say, oh, well, it's not. And it's a good thing the war is going to carry on. We had allegedly Trump agreeing to an 84-day pause in the war and a peace agreement with Iran. And people they want to celebrate. I understand. People want good news and they want to celebrate and they want this effing war to be over with.
Except all the neocons, right?
Except who were the two that I don't want to name?
Senator Roger Wicker was going nuts. Senator Lindsey Graham was going nuts.
Lindsey Graham, yeah.
Levin was going nuts. Mark Thiessen was going nuts. Kurt Schlichter, the cuckold Kurt, as I like to call him, he was going nuts. All these people that said trust the plan, trust Trump, all of a sudden said no, you can't trust the plan, you can't trust Trump. You must go in there and finish Israel's business, Trump. That's what you're here for, and that's the only reason you're here for. And then, people like the Village Crazy Lady point out there that in the middle of, after there's an announcement that there's going to be a peace negotiation, somebody shows up shooting at the White House. And it's the very first thing, Bibi, here's a golden pager for you, Mr. President, as his first gift, tweets out. It's a little bit weird.
Okay, and it is weird. The problem
it's not as weird as framing an Iraqi tour guide as part of the Iranian plan to kill Ivanka Trump. One of the dumbest, latest, ludicrous false flags from the DOJ. And the guy he has a special passport, by the way, that only the U.S. could have made sure he got. So everything about it says bogus case. They're running with that nonsense. And at the same time, we get another quasi-assassination attempt. Apparently, and it all fits in conveniently to Trump suddenly reversing course and not doing the deal that he had just agreed to himself.
I'd say I'm not one to deny the existence of dots, but I will wait 48 hours before connecting them. And one can appreciate it. They announce a peace deal. People rejoice, say Trump is going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. There's a shooting of a guy who apparently was involuntarily institutionalized less than a year ago, manages to still get a gun, opens fire, gets shot. And there's, the videos of the journalists either reacting or not reacting go viral. Then Netanyahu tweets out about that, not about the peace deal. And then the peace deal's off the table. And people who were touting this as a Nobel Prize peace agreement now have to eat crow and then pretend that they're okay with the war going on because they've got to finish the job. But so I'm not sure that those dots are connected yet, but that's certainly the timeline within which things happen. But a lot of things happen in geopolitics
like
over a weekend.
Charlie Kirk tells people, I'm dropping the pro-Israeli cause, and 48 hours later, he's dead. And that's what led Andrew Clavitt to believe that at least there should be an investigation. And he's the one that was the source for Joe Kent and others saying, I think there's a reason for it. He's the one, he's talking to Tucker Carlson, a bunch of people saying, this is why I'm concerned. And then he gets shut up and he lets everybody else get thrown under the bus while he goes quiet. And then they sabotage the Massie campaign this past week and then celebrate that with a bogus routine in answering people's questions and then lie to Thomas Massie on social media. And it's like, and it's all about the same, it's like, there's some patterns you just can't ignore. And Joe Kent is right. Until Trump disciplines Bibi Netanyahu, Trump is going to be Bibi's little bitch. And he will destroy his presidency. He will destroy the Republican coalition. He will destroy the chances at the midterms. And he will ultimately face impeachment and potentially removal. For what? For a tiny little foreign nation and a crazy... you look at Bibi. Clearly he's got health issues. He looks so bad, it looks like he's been a Palestinian in an Israeli prison for 3 months. That's how bad Bibi's Netanyahu physically looked. So we got to get out of this. I hope we do get out of it. But for those hoping for a peace plan, it looks like it's already blown up, unfortunately. But on the fortunate side, we got plenty of fun, interesting legal cases to cover, so we don't got to worry about that. But I do want to give a shout out to all the veterans this weekend for Memorial Day this Monday. Your service will always be recognized and respected, and hopefully those out there in service right now, that your lives will be protected and won't be risked for a foreign nation.
I want to bring this one up. First of all, I absolutely, and it's the one thing. Even if you disagree, even if you politically disagree, you still obviously and always respect veterans. And I forget who the guy was, the Democrat who's now taking flack for a 2019 post where he said some veteran was lucky to be alive, and he's alive through no intelligence of his own. I forget who the guy was. It doesn't really matter. Like I always say, also in battle, there are certain things that you should not say, even if you want to, because they can't be unsaid afterwards. But I want to bring this one up. Mr. John is back, says Massie got millions from Yes. Will Barnes address this? Let me address this first before you do, Robert. You'll tell me what you think. That kind of shows he's not anti-Semitic. If I have one thing, it kind of shows that he's not anti-Semitic. Or you're going to say
or even anti-Israel. He just says that AIPAC he wasn't going to take money from AIPAC because he doesn't believe money should go to foreign nations, and he doesn't believe war should be waged for foreign nations. But he has otherwise pretty much never been a critic of Israel. He's not a guy running around talking about, Gaza every day. But he offended him because he opposes war. He offended him because he says we shouldn't be taking money from a foreign lobby. And he offended him because he was for disclosure of the Epstein files. But Yass gave money because Rand Paul, he's a big supporter of Rand Paul. And he gave money to Rand Paul's PAC that was supporting Thomas Massie. It still can't compare at all to the 15 million plus. I believe when it's all said and done, we'll discover 30 million or more was spent by people connected to AIPAC and the Israel lobby against Thomas Massie, because there's a bunch of disclosures they don't have to make until months and months away. And there's some they'll never have to. They can figure out ways not to disclose. And so that's the nature of that. And then, of course, they're buying off influencers. Benny Johnson become a pure access journalist, a pure grifter to get, give me another pat on the head, Mr. Trump. Please give me a pat on the head. Those kind of folks. And it's sad and pitiful to watch. But, taking out Massie did far more damage to Trump than it did to Massie. Massie was going to be stuck in a house he could do nothing in. Now he can take time to focus on a gubernatorial campaign in Kentucky, potential Senate campaign in Kentucky, potential presidential campaign for the White House. So all they did is free up his time. And as Dr. Drew said, you're talking about one of the smartest members of Congress. Not only is the most constitutionally loyal member of Congress, the only member of Congress who stood up for Amish farmer Amos Miller, the only member of Congress to right away stand up for the Covington kids, one of the few members of Congress to be early critical of the J6 police operations, one of the first members of Congress to out the efforts to frame a autistic black kid as a patsy. Why did all the FBI whistleblowers support Massie? Why do all the CIA whistleblowers support Massie? Why does Joe Kent support Massie? Because anybody with an IQ over 80 knows that Massie is one of the most important freedom fighters, Constitution lovers in all of Congress. And he's one of the smartest human beings and one of the nicest human beings you're ever going to meet. And that whole crowd was pumped and packed. Well, Ed Galbraith had to like drag some people to get 8 people at his so-called victory party, because his victory party was in Tel Aviv that night, not in Kentucky.
Look, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not trying to protect anything or cover my ass. I wish Massie hadn't made the Tel Aviv joke, because it's not the right time, and also it does show a little bit of resentment instead of what should be.
But it's the case. We all should be outraged.
But
a foreign lobby is buying our members of Congress. This is the entire discussion around the world. You had the Iranian propaganda folks, the explosive media folks. They were making Lego videos about it. Folks, you may not like it, but the whole world now thinks our members of Congress are for sale to foreign lobbies. This is humiliating to America in its 250th anniversary.
I still wish he hadn't said it, because now it allows people to focus on that instead of the issues. Although I appreciate some people are going to say now he forced I wish he hadn't said it, but set that aside. Robert, I got to bring this one up because it's hilarious. Barnes must be a pedophile and blackmail. Who would have the blackmail? Who do you think got Barnes? Like the NSA is blackmailing Barnes to support Massie? Oh gosh, it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
That's the level of the. I feel bad for all the Trump tards, the dear leader folks. And again, I'm not saying every Trump supporter is a Trump tard, since I've had political and personal sacrifice for a decade, for professional sacrifice, financial sacrifice for a decade supporting the man. I'm referring to those people who will change their policies, change their principles on a dime just to support dear leader says, dear leader says. Like, we're going to go into detail tonight about how the Trump administration is the most corrupt administration in American history. And I would be the last person on the planet who would think I would have to say that. But it's a reality. And sticking our head in the sand ain't going to save or solve nothing.
Well, let's get on to that. I saw some people in the chat saying Trump is not keeping the $1.776 billion. It's going to victims of lawfare. And, everybody's got to make their claim. So,
he doesn't even have a process for the claim. They haven't even been interviewing J6 people. They're still civilly going after J6 people in several cases. Robin Gritz is they're still refusing to reinstate her or do anything to help her. The FBI whistleblower, they never did anything for Tina Peters. It just took public pressure for the governor to commuter sentence. They haven't done anything for Dexter Taylor in New York. Now, if Dexter Taylor was an Israel firster, Harmeet Dillon would have been the first one up there. But he's a Second Amendment victim, so they don't care. The Kurt Benschoof in Washington, nothing. The Amish, Amos Miller, Amish farmers, nothing. They have done literally nothing for anybody that's not an Israel firster. They're designing special rules, special laws, special standards, special enforcement for everything related to Israel, while they're doing nothing, dropping the ball. Stephen Miller's America First Legal Group convinced people to sue IBM and Red Hat over their DEI discriminatory policies. Now that arbitration is starting up, guess what they did? Abandon him overnight. Just abandon him. Refuse to support him. Refuse to be involved. Because while Stephen Miller was too busy running around screaming about Thomas Massie, while his wife is getting a sweetheart bribe by the Paramount Plus buying her low rent, low level, low audience, low attention podcast. What do people think that's about? Do you think she's gonna get a multi-million-dollar deal because people really want to listen to Katie Miller? No, it's because it's a way to bribe and pay off Stephen Miller for being loyal to Israel first, Israel above all. So that's the reality of it. We'll be covering it tonight, so people are aware of it. Glenn Greenwald will be broadcast this week. Did a bunch of interviews with 20 plus Trump supporters. Not a single one of them was even aware it was happening. When I mentioned it, they'd be like, "Oh, that's fake news. Trump's lost money." Folks, Trump added more money to his net worth in the first year of his presidency than all the presidents before him combined, during, or after their presidency.
Let me steel man the retort, Robert. The retort is going to be that he lost money during his first term, that he has lost money during the lawfare in between first and second term. And this isn't making money. This is sort of what would have otherwise happened had he not been the victim of the lawfare and having lost money the first term. So they'll say, and I'm not, I know what I think. It doesn't matter what I think. The argument will be He lost money as a result of becoming president, and now it's sort of just reestablishing what would have otherwise happened had he not been subjected to the lawfare from Leticia James, from E. Jean Carroll, etc. This would be business as usual, so it's not profiteering.
That's the problem. The problem is if that would have happened, say, just between his election and inauguration, maybe, but that isn't where the money source is coming from. Now, you have the rug pulls of his supporters. So they've done multiple meme coins, Melania coin, Trump coin, some other coins, where all the value of it went to the insiders, and the ordinary person who bought that coin lost 96, 97% of their investment. So you had a lot of crypto rug pulls that were part of this. But it's not the main source. Trump hasn't added nearly $1.5 billion to his net worth in a year, nor has Eric Trump added $500 million wealth in a year. Don Trump Jr., $500 million wealth in a year. The Jared Kushner, now a billionaire. That hasn't all happened, and that doesn't even include the Witkoffs and all the friends and allies and other corrupt pals, the Mike Davises of the world. Doesn't include all of them that are part of this grift. But here's where that money is coming from. So one, it comes from government contracts that profit the family. The family will invest in a particular company, and then voila, suddenly either the Pentagon is writing him a huge check, or suddenly a foreign government like Kazakhstan is writing him a huge check, or the UAE or the Saudis are suddenly investing in their little separate special funds they've now set up. You have the government decisions that profit the family. Take the IRS immunity agreement. The primary benefit is that now they're given immunity forever and ever. The IRS can never look at any of the Trump family, Trump business, Trump returns if it's in any way connected to lawfare. And the way that's so broad, they'll use it to argue they can never be audited again. They can never be reviewed again. They can never be investigated again for anything related to that. This is unheard of. This has never been done before. You have Trump, and who was it that signed it? Well, I'll give you the idea for how corrupt this was. One of the most well-respected lawyers in the Trump administration was the general counsel at the Treasury Department. This is a Clarence Thomas clerk. So he's not only well-recognized, his loyalty is beyond dispute. He immediately resigned the moment that got published, and because he was protesting it all the way through. The only person who signed it is Todd Blanche. What does it look like when Trump's personal lawyer, now the acting attorney general, is signing a special deal that the government can never investigate for potential corruption, the Trump family and all their businesses? But that's not all. Then there's the government regulations that are profiting the family in a wide range of contexts, whether it's crypto and the SEC no longer looking at things. Look at the insider trading going on that's rampant. The president himself is setting a record for the number of trades he himself is engaged in since the Iran war started. The J.D. Vance's excuse was, no, someone else is magically doing it that's just magically getting profits. Yeah, keep trying that route, J.D. Good luck with that defense. One of the key people at the SEC, former military person, another well-respected law clerk, also was pushed out because she wanted to investigate. Look at what happened this week with the director of national intelligence and her deputy. Her deputy, Amaryllis Fox, who was the daughter-in-law of Robert Kennedy, suddenly resigns. And she does a little post saying everything's fine and she's not objecting to anything. She had to write that because her father-in-law, Robert Francis Kennedy Jr., is basically almost held hostage over at the health department. Why else? Well, his FDA person was pushed out, Dr. McCarthy. Guess why? It got published that he opposed giving special deals to the vape people that are basically poisoning our kids. And then it comes out from public reports that, in fact, the big tobacco companies that make the vapes made big donations right before that deal got forced through. So, and this is happening on a regular basis. We can talk about antitrust. We can talk pay-for-play pardons. We can talk about pay-for-play dismissals. Pay-for-play, look at the EPA and fluoride. Look at the deal they did with Bayer for glyphosate to give them special immunity and argue for it in the federal court, in the Supreme Court of the United States, no less. They are literally weaponizing every tool of the federal government to line their families' pockets. Look at Donald Trump Jr.'s setting up an executive club with, by the way, one of the people connected to that and his other fund is the Mercer family of Breitbart dominant fame, where they charge people $500,000 to become a member, and you get to mingle with members of the Trump administration. What do you think they're paying that $500,000 for? Huh? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The scale, the scope, the severity of the corruption is mind-boggling. It's right there to see in the record-setting profits and enrichment that all the family is getting all around them. But people are connecting the dots, and they're connecting the dots in ways that are going to be so damnable. The president will be at serious risk. Not only is it guaranteed he gets impeached, but he's at serious risk of being removed from the presidency itself because nobody up there will say, halt, stop, wait, this is too much, this is too far, have some limits. And instead, they go after little soldiers trading on Polymarket that they might be successful with a Maduro raid to cover for the institutional corruption. This doesn't even get into the oil trades that are happening on a regular basis, where somebody 15 to 30 minutes to an hour before Trump makes an announcement that's going to move the markets clearly knows he's going to make the announcement, and they make billion-dollar trades that are making hundreds of millions of dollars. The whole world can see this. And the reason why nobody believes him in the Senate that the 1.7 billion is for a legitimate weaponization fund for legitimate victims is they've seen all the other stuff. And now, by the way, this is what their pitch was to the Senate. It was kind of like what Howard Lutnick did. Before he was going to testify about his prior lies about being in the Epstein files, he gives a $5 million donation to Republican House members. And then they decide, let's have this hearing in secret and sealed up. Right now they're pitching the senators, you know what? If you go along with this $1.7 billion fund, we'll give you a big chunk of it. How does people think that would look? I mean, they're running the presidency like it's a Latin oligarch, Mideast royal dictatorship. And it's just a disgrace.
Robert, first of all, kind of funny as we're live here. I noticed Netanyahu just put up this post, and my immediate observation was that Netanyahu put himself in front of President Donald Trump. I mean, imagine if Zelensky had done something like this and put himself in front of the president, as if it's very that was not what I was looking at. That was my immediate observation there. The $1.776 billion. People are going to say it doesn't go into Trump's pocket, doesn't go into the pockets of his immediate friends or family. And it is for people who have been the victims of lawfare, and people can submit their claims. Now, I don't know what the process or procedure is yet. I know.
They don't have one. That's what they told the Senate. They don't have one. They said there's going to be like 5 committee members, but we don't know. How are they going to be selected? We don't know yet. How are you going to do processing? We don't know yet. How are you going to do claims? We don't know yet. If they were legitimately intending this to be a true victim fund, all of that would have been well established. And again, this is when Trump sued the IRS. I was hopeful he would use it as a precedent that would record a judgment that would just be an injunctive declaratory relief judgment, have no money attached to it at all, for the purposes of deterring the IRS from harassing ordinary people in the future. Instead, they abandoned all of that because the judge was like, hold on a second, you're on both sides of this. Isn't that a problem? Rather than solve that problem by having an independent person assigned to defend the IRS, and you could come to the similar agreement because it wouldn't cost any penny and it would be much better public policy, he abandoned protecting anybody connected to the IRS. Abandoned it all for this sweetheart immunity deal for his friends and his family and himself, and this huge pocket of cash that has no intentions as to where it's going. And so far, everything he's done in this account so far has been for pals and allies and buddies. That's been almost exclusively where it has gone. He's going to help January 6ers. He hasn't even bothered to interview them about their civil rights complaints. They've been begging to talk to the administration, and they can't get in.
No, but and how are they going to do that when some of the prosecutors who prosecuted the January 6ers, for which they would be receiving compensation, are still working at the DOJ? There was another one that I just noticed here. Hold on, let me bring it up. Oh, good job, Barnes. Now do the Democrats, the ones trying to lock up political opponents and take freedom of speech and gun rights.
Trust me, I'm an equal opportunity offender when it comes to the commie-crats. I've been complaining about them for a decade. But what's embarrassing is right now the American people believe the most imminent risk to your free speech are Republicans. We'll get to maybe that's a good transition, a couple of cases where it's Republicans going after people trying to weaponize the government to suppress their free speech. This doesn't even get to Seb Gorka, who's trying to create a domestic terror list that's putting Tucker Carlson or anybody skeptical of Israel on it. Fortunately, I think you're still not on it, so you can always go to the blank screen when
what I find like truly disconcerting is it's the default. I mean, if you don't know what a whataboutism is, oh, might now do the Democrats. Well, first of all, if that's your concern, all of this is going to sort of bring them back into power. It's sort of like, who was saying, like, if they ever come back into power, they're going to lock us all up. Yeah. And so maybe, and this is what people say, you're captured. I don't know what people think your vested interest is in all of this, other than they have to be new to the channel to have not seen the evolution over the years. This was not the way this administration was supposed to be heading right now, period. And there's a reason. The division is not division. What it is people saying, this is not what, this is not the direction it should have been going in. We shouldn't be talking about another endless war that's going into 4 months and no end in sight, coming to a midterm. Gas at damn near $5 a gallon. I just filled up the truck and it was $90. And again, you see it. It's not as dire of a concern for some as it is for others, but then, wait until you get to the price of foods. This is not where it was supposed to be. It started off flipping beautifully. It started off with pardons. It started off with going after the deep state. It started off with meaningful, election promise actions. And where we're at right now, not because X, Y, not because hundreds of thousands, millions of people, or a number of prominent political commentators have changed their views. The situation has changed, and people are going to say the 1.76 billion, it's going to go to a fund, and until it's until we have hard evidence that it's misappropriated, you're screaming at the sky, Robert. Fine, we can put that one in a parentheses. I know people who are applying. We'll see if they get it, but the bottom line, the Jocelyn Ballantyne, who's responsible for people applying for this, is still working at the DOJ, still prosecuting, not other people. What I was going to say about the other ones, that the IRS not going, Trump signing something that basically says my company's related to companies. It wasn't that they can't be. It was that they can't be investigated. The IRS would not be able to go after them.
Can't examine their returns, can't audit their returns, can't review their returns, can't engage in any degree of investigation whatsoever forever. That's the words, forever, if it is connected to lawfare, which is so broadly defined and described that it basically is a permanent. Could he pardon himself? Yes. Could he pardon everybody? Yes. That's not what this is. This is the DOJ giving immunity from everything, civil or criminal. And again, to my knowledge, it's never been done in the history of America, this kind of agreement. They have no precedent for it. Ask yourself, why is Blanche the only one signing it? Why is it like a 3-paragraph thing that appears to have been drafted overnight? This is half-ass, as well as evident corruption. But I mean, to give an example of the free speech concerns, why is it that there's now a belief that Republicans are a greater threat to free speech amongst independent voters than Democrats? Well, an incredible reversal. It's because of things like what Gorka's doing. It's things like going after people for being skeptical of Israel. It's the lobby that is proposing congressional legislation that Charlie Kirk himself condemned as outrageous. That is part of it. And I'll give a case that's Kirk connected, that Charlie would have never wanted this to happen. So after Charlie was murdered, a local cop in Perry County, ex-cop in Perry County, Tennessee, put up some memes, and the memes he put up was quoting Trump, when after a school shooting, Trump was like, you just got to get past it. And so his response to his, he was clearly a Trump critic, to the people that were correctly, in my view, obviously, mourning Charlie Kirk's murder was, you just got to get past it. Remember that this is what Trump said. I disagree with the man's speech. That's an understatement. However, that is not somebody in power weaponizing their position in order to incite violence. That's someone just making a political point using Trump's own quote in a like-minded political horrific circumstance, tragic circumstance. But that's not how Perry County responded. They arrested him and jailed him for 37 days for a meme. For a meme. Because conservatives have lost their mind. They've become authoritarians. They become what they condemned. They looked deep into the well and saw the monster and decided they wanted to be the monster. And so he sued. They had ultimately dropped the charges. The charges was that he was feloniously threatening to mass murder children because he was quoting Trump after a school shooting, which is just preposterous extrapolation and a clear First Amendment violation. Well, Perry County paid the price. They had to pay him a near $850,000 check as they realized the jury was going to hammer him in the upcoming case. But it's not the only one. Another case, a woman in Texas was just pointing out that their water is often brown, and water shouldn't be brown. Now, there's a big problem connected to data centers, which, by the way, Trump wants to give special immunity to, so that your local people can't resist, your local people can't object to. And I wonder if it relates to his investments in a company called, Palantir, and a bunch of other AI companies. Why do people think he has Tim Cook and the Google folks and the Apple folks and the AI folks all around him all the time at the White House, even though these people waged war on him for a decade? It's because he's now in bed with them. Instead of being Rodney Dangerfield at the country club, he decided he wanted to be inside and loved at the country club. And this is another way in which he continuously weaponizes his federal power to enrich his friends, allies, and himself. But that's one of the concerns. Well, one of the issues with the AI is not just the massive electricity drain and utility cost it boosts in local areas. It causes a huge water problem. And so it's not clear whether this is AI connected or whether it's just a history of issues in that particular area. But the sheriff's response to her pointing out this is a serious problem, people can get sick from this, was to threaten her with felony charges. Now, fortunate for her, a bunch of people stood up for her. And the grand jury in the local Texas county was like, no, we're not indicting off this insanity. But she had to go through all of that craziness to even get there. So the reason why free speech is being perceived as an equal threat, under threat from the Democrats and the Republicans is because of dumb decisions like this by Republican politicians.
My perspective now on freedom of speech is that it's always the party in power that has the tendency of wanting to suppress it because it's the tool that is used by those not in power to go after those in power. And having seen, the way it's been let's say ideologically, it's certainly been targeted in terms of who they're going after. It's true. You can be as you can be as pro-administration as you want and say things that might otherwise get you in trouble if it were another administration in power. But if you say certain things, then all of a sudden people tell you to shut up, and all of a sudden people start threatening you with potential governmental repercussions. Robert,
I'm an equal party offender because I managed to get on the list of the government no matter which party's in power. It's not the list you usually want to be on.
Let me read. This is the settlement agreement in just so people fully appreciate it. In the tax case, it says, in exchange for relief provided in this settlement agreement and except as provided herein, e.g. claims process described below, plaintiffs hereby release, waive, and acquit and forever discharge defendants in the United States from and hereby forever barred and precluded from prosecuting or pursuing any and all claims, charges, counterclaims, causes of actions, appeals, or requests for any relief, injunctive, monetary damages, tax payments, debt relief, costs, attorney's fees, etc., as of the effective date that have been or could have been asserted by plaintiffs in the case. So this is the plaintiffs releasing the defendants. That's not the right section.
Well, it's both, because the first part is the plaintiffs, the second part is the defendants. The other problem with this is that should not be worded that way. It is worded that way to deceive people that don't know the full legal implications of it. So they get confused. Is this a plaintiff bar? Is this a defense bar? In fact, it's the United States from and forever barred and precluded from prosecuting. Plaintiffs don't prosecute or pursuing all of these things. And as Blanche's later letter made clear, this is what's made to look like a restriction by Trump is actually a restriction on the IRS. And they've been playing games with trying to. This is why the Senate blew up. It blew up for multiple reasons. That the announcement of endorsement of Paxton upset some senators. Massie's lost upset Senator Paul, and so there's a range of those issues that are underlying it. But you have multiple congressmen that are saying they're going to strip the president from having any funding for this because of the way it went down. And it's going to be part of the impeachment counts. I mean, it's because nobody up there in the White House is willing to tell the president no. And like you look at Amaryllis Fox, deputy of the director of national intelligence, and Tulsi Gabbard, director of national intelligence, both resigned this week. What I mean, the official narrative is, Fox wants to look out for private opportunities, and Tulsi Gabbard's husband has a tragic form, a very rare form of bone cancer. But quickly, it was leaked to Reuters that the reason why that Tulsi was pushed out, that she was forced out. She was on the verge of the election 2020 investigative report. She was on the verge of the COVID report, on the COVID fraud related to Fauci and other report. She was doing a deep dive and showing what happened in the 2020 election. the deep dive into showing what happened with Ukraine biolabs. All of that was a major threat to the intel agencies and deep state, so much that the CIA was hiding documents from her, withholding documents from her, retracting documents from her that was misconstrued as a seizure, but also came out that the CIA was spying on every little keystroke they made on any computer anywhere in the Director of National Intelligence office, that they were spying on him related to Steve Baker's investigation about covering up for a CIA agent who was the actual likely J6 pipe bomb planter, and when they were trying to frame that black autistic kid instead. That was part of what they were monitoring. So, the CIA Ratcliffe, as I like to call him, was busy undermining, and now none of those investigations are going to get completed, and they're going to die on a vine. Because again, Trump has decided Trump is no longer deep sixing the deep state. He is the deep state.
Robert, people are, I'll say, Barnes, stop it. Shame on you. Tulsi's husband has bone cancer. There's two things here.
Look up Reuters public report with someone in the White House immediately came out and said they forced her out. So, if you want to be one of those seal clappers,
it's not
go ahead. The truth is there for everybody to see.
And nobody's saying her husband doesn't have bone cancer, period. The question I had is, on the one hand, we've been hearing for the last little while, they say do not invite was the DNI for Tulsi. Then people say that's sources, we don't trust it. Then we have also been commenting as this has been progressing. Amazing. Tulsi has been doing the Lord's work. She submitted the Russiagate referral for prosecution.
Where are those prosecutions?
What has happened?
How long has that been? Over a year. Over a year. Has there been a single prosecution related to her criminal referral that she gave to Russiagate over a year ago?
They took her. By the way, and then we, there's rumors or at least allegations that the CIA was spying on her. But hold on one second, Robert. Okay, well, let me get the dog out in a second. Okay, so people don't like this, and it's unfortunate when you don't like where things seem to be going by all accounts. But what has happened on the Russiagate hoax prosecutions? Who do we have? We got who? No, there was somebody. There was somebody. I forget who. What do we have on the
Russiagate hoax? Like they got Comey on the 86 threat. They got the Bolton on other issues. They haven't indicted anybody yet on the Russiagate stuff of consequence.
Let me say, this is so you're saying. Congrats. You're already proving
Tulsi
yourself
didn't
to be
say she wasn't pushed out. She said she was glad to have served, and she's resigning. And her husband has a rare form of bone cancer. She's going to help treat him.
She said resigning effective June 30th. She said
she's
this on
going
the 22nd.
to try to do everything she can to get those reports out. They're just now going to be rushed.
And I said that she said this on Friday at about the same time Trump said he's not going to his son's wedding because something big was brewing. And I hypothesized that if someone she might have been able. I mean, hypothetically, it's not inconceivable she could have made the announcement a little later, depending on what happens this weekend. But now you got this apparently being a truth post from Trump. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I don't know if that's
a bomb because that's a great thing for the president to do. On Memorial Day weekend, going to risk more American lives. The incredible way to it is what it is. But guess who Donald Trump Jr. married into this weekend?
I know her name.
Who is the father of the new bride?
I'm not going to know. I don't know because I don't want to know these things, Robert. Okay, who is it?
One of the key people affiliated with Jeffrey Epstein. One of the people that helped introduce Jeffrey Epstein to get special benefits to get his island. That is literally who the Trump family is. Literally, you don't have to wonder about their connection to the Epstein class. They're literally marrying into the Epstein class.
Who is it?
You can just look up Epstein.
Bettina Anderson. Let me do this while we're live. I'm fact checking you. Let's see if it's
fact check. Fact check.
Who is father? Okay, we'll get this. I hadn't heard that.
That doesn't even cover the biggest betrayal of the week. That's what and it was the number one top topic beyond no favorites was the number one overwhelming winner at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. But this was otherwise the top pick. It's what happened. Maha, it's hanging on by a thread after multiple resignations and multiple people forced out that Bobby Kennedy had put into power. All due, by the way, either to vapes or vaccines, where they went along with big pharma or they went along with big tobacco. They're just or the big chemical companies over Bayer. Well, now I remember that case that we covered, the great win, where a judge finally recognized fluoride should not be in our water. That at a certain level, it is contaminant. It is dangerous. It is causing problems.
It objectively low. It is well. There's studies that prove that it lowers IQ. There's studies that prove that it's unhealthy. That's why they don't put it in toothpaste, and that's why they tell you to spit it out of your mouth vigorously when you get toothpaste with it. And they've been putting it in water. There's been a historical lowering of IQs in areas where they do it. The judge declared that they shouldn't be doing it, and now, what was it? An appellate court? Was it? It wasn't. Which court was it that reversed that? Reversed and remanded.
What happened is the EPA chose to appeal that ruling. They could have left that ruling in place, used it as the pretext to put in a rule stopping high levels of fluoride from being in our water. But instead, Lee Zeldin, captured by the corporate lobbyist, went in, just like he went in to lobby so that Bayer could have special immunity when their pesticides cause cancer all across the country, went in to lobby and to appeal with the Justice Department to the Ninth Circuit to vacate that district court ruling. And they won this week. They got the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to vacate the ruling so that the fluoride can stay in our water. Another Maha betrayal. Now, there was one perceived Maha betrayal that really wasn't, but the PR on this wasn't great. Robert Kennedy announced they were going to use the PrEP Act to deal with the hantavirus. I don't know if did you get the email I sent you with the?
Oh, no, I started off the show with. I played at the beginning the X-Files hantavirus section.
Yeah, the X-Files, the clip of the hantavirus. I can't believe they're going to that. It's like whoever's writing the script for our simulation it's just nuts. But because they literally took the hantavirus. So instead of COVID, what should we do next? What was that X-Files one that's connected to the aliens? Oh yeah, hantavirus. Let's create a hantavirus pandemic. So Robert Kennedy puts out as Secretary of Health and Human Services a PrEP Act announcement. Now, it was a little vague. He later clarified, nothing to do with vaccines, nothing to do with taking away anyone's rights, nothing to do with any mandates, nothing to do with any broad immunity. It was simply to allow one or two particular therapeutics to be expedited for availability. And so that wasn't the betrayal that people initially thought. They're like, holy cow. I would note to my friend, Robert Kennedy, Secretary of Health and Human Services, he educated me several years ago about, hey, Barnes, this PrEP Act, it is unconstitutional. So just a little reminder, Bobby. I think it's still unconstitutional. Even if you're signing it, I think it's still unconstitutional. But at least that wasn't the betrayal that people thought it was. Bobby Kennedy's still trying to fight to get the best he can for all of Maha. But the Trump administration is making his job as difficult and as nightmarish as possible.
Here, Robert, this is from Mia, to be taken with a grain, the same grain of salt as all, but you can pull up the documents. Fact check: was Donald Trump Jr.'s wife, Bettina Anderson, father, an Epstein enabler? Post referenced a 1999 recommendation letter in which Bettina Anderson's father reportedly called Epstein a gentleman of the highest integrity. Yada, yada. Okay, there was a post that came out. Let's get to this here. The claim: the Isaac's Army. Donald Trump Jr. just married Palm Beach royalty Bettina Anderson yesterday in a private ceremony. Her late father, banker Harry Loy Anderson Jr., was an Epstein enabler. In 1990, he called him. Okay, fine. According to the ex-user, the post made a claim that Bettina Anderson's father was an Epstein enabler. Okay, let's get here. The post stated, my goodness. It further claimed her late father.
So that you have to watch 9 ads before you get to it. You know how that is? It's like 2 paragraphs, ad, 2 paragraphs, ad. I'll give you credit for you, though. At least your ads are like real generic. Some people, you discover what they've been looking at when they're ads. You're like, oh,
you'll get shoes.
You'll get an ad for that, eh?
I don't even know I'm getting shoes. I should be getting baseball cards now. The Post also referenced the 1999 incident, saying in 1999 he wrote a recommendation letter calling Epstein a gentleman of the highest integrity to help him get big tax breaks in the Virgin Islands. Let's get here. Fact check. According to the Post, my goodness, does it keep doing this? The Post also asserts. Yeah. Okay. Well, the bottom line, it seems that the documents. Epstein was a banking client of Harry Loy Anderson Jr.'s bank, Palm Beach National Bank and Trust, starting in the early 90s. In 1999, he wrote this letter. And what was this purpose? What was the purpose of this? He wrote a formal recommendation letter on behalf of Jeffrey Epstein to the U.S. Virgin Islands Industrial Development Commission. In it, he described Epstein as a gentleman of the highest order. Look, whether or not I wouldn't.
It was in order so that he could get his island.
This is.
But can you imagine? I mean, it's like I was like, it just shows that we're in some sort of wacky simulation.
Level. It's 99. I'm going to offer the same grace to the woman's father as I would to Donald Trump in 99. Not everybody necessarily knew everything. We didn't have the information we have now, or even in 2007. And he was a banking guy, and that's what you do. So I won't draw any negative conclusions from that. I can appreciate that some people are sure as hell going to connect the dots. The bottom line, however, is in politics and in business, and in that level of business, it's one big incestuous family, and you're going to find the connections if you're looking for them. But I can understand people are going to freak out about that. I wouldn't make a mountain of that molehill myself. But interesting, nonetheless.
Now, speaking of some losses, in some cases that I originally supported, but I'm starting to wonder what exactly the motivation is. So the Justice Department has been suing a bunch of states, demanding to get all the voter files. I assume that this was a Judicial Watch style effort to make sure that the voter rolls were legitimate and not padded with dead voters, people who were not properly registered, people who were registered in multiple jurisdictions, all the things that plagued the 2020 election. But as the suits have developed, it's become clear the focal point is getting the kind of information that Palantir wants. So, I've been a skeptic at parts of people like Whitney Webb. I think she makes insights, but then she throws a bunch of things together that often are just, dots on a board that don't always connect. But, her and then Max Blumenthal also had been warning that what was being sold as immigration enforcement, what was being sold as Doge fraud exposure, what was being sold as making sure our elections have integrity is in fact about building a massive Palantir-style surveillance database. And some of the stuff with Doge, they get rid of Doge, but only after they're getting the Social Security records of everything plugged into this whole system. That the illegal immigration, their mass amnesty bill that now Trump is going to push through after the November elections, because Richard Barris blew the whistle on exactly the people who are behind fake misuse and abuse of accurate polling by him, but misrepresented to pitch this deal. He blew it all up. He'll tell that story on his own time and dime. But unfortunately, and probably likely just delayed it rather than prevented it. But in that amnesty bill, they got a whole verified thing. And that it's like, hold on a second, you're going to give amnesty. So what's the e-verification for? It's to put all of us in the database. And so I'm starting to wonder what exactly, especially because they haven't followed up anywhere else on election integrity outside of one case in Atlanta that Tulsi Gabbard was part of, and now she's gone. And so I'm like, what's going on? Well, these federal judges, including Trump appointees, are smelling a rat. And they are rejecting the Justice Department's request repeatedly because they're like, you haven't laid out the factual basis for why you want what you want. You appear to be obsessed with getting Social Security numbers and private information that's not needed for you to enforce the election law issues you want to enforce. And so now they've lost in Maine, they've lost in Wisconsin, I think they've lost in another 3 or 4 other states on grounds that what they're asking for is in excess of what they're legally entitled to, that they haven't provided the factual basis and any nexus to civil rights authorities to what they're doing and why they're doing and how they're doing it, and that they're often obsessed with getting people's private information to stick into some big database, likely managed by Palantir. The same Palantir that's deeply connected to the Israel lobby, the same Palantir that Peter Thiel helped set up with the former Israeli president. Oh, by the way, who was it that had that idea? Who was it that connected Ehud Barak and Peter Thiel to do Palantir? Was it? Oh yeah, Jeffrey Epstein. Somehow Epstein is like the 6th degree of separations from all evil around the world.
It's like Mike Ben says, he's the Forrest Gump of geopolitics and gun running and CIA operations. He's always there in the picture. Was it Epstein or was it Maxwell's sister was also working on something
Yes.
of a video surveillance data gathering company?
Of course, it all comes back to the Israel lobby or Jeffrey Epstein. Or some combination thereof.
No, intelligence at large. It's whether it's Mossad, Five Eyes. Okay, so hold on.
So it looks like we're going to lose all those because Harmeet Dillon's not doing her job. But at least she's making sure there's no anti-Israeli graffiti anywhere. She's working. She's right on top of that.
Robert, Tina Peters, we talked about it last week. There is, in as much as I want to make an argument that maybe I don't know what went on behind the scenes. There's no information that anything went on behind the scenes that had Trump or Attorney General AAG Harmeet Dillon involved in what Governor Polis issued by way of commutation, right? It's that looks like it was his
correct.
decision alone.
They did very little. They didn't lift much of a finger. Again, they've done nothing for the Kurt Benchu case in Seattle, nothing for the Amos Miller case or any of the Amish in Pennsylvania, nothing for Dexter Taylor in New York. I mean, you should remind people the Dexter Taylor case is one of the most outrageous cases in the country. Just remind people what those facts are. Why, if they're serious about supporting Second Amendment rights, that Harmeet Dillon should be suing the state of New York as we speak.
Dexter Taylor, I don't know if he's 56 or 60, no criminal record. The fact that he's black is not relevant to any of this, except for the fact that when I interviewed him, I said, what do you think the state's trying to prove with you? And they said they're trying to prove that an uppity, it was his words and his words only. He says they want to show that they're not going to tolerate an uppity black man deciding to exercise his Second Amendment rights for his own protection, that they want to be the protectors of their pet projects, that being minorities who they want to disarm and basically force them to be the wards of the state. And so when he went out there and boldly exercised his Second Amendment rights, which for everybody who understands this, consisted of assembling a firearm peacefully and lawfully in his own New York apartment from parts that he peacefully and lawfully ordered online, had delivered to his house. And he was raided by the ATF at the time, the initial raid, and the ATF federally never pursued any charges. It was just the state who pursued felony charges for failure to register that firearm with the state of New York. And in his trial before Judge Darkey, he literally was trying to argue Second Amendment constitutional issues, which is the law of the land, to which Judge Darkey said, you're in New York, don't bring in the Second Amendment. There is no Second Amendment in this court. And they locked him away for 10 years. He's got an ex-wife. He's got 2 kids. He's been locked away for now 2 years, maybe it's a little more now. And they are going to steal 10 years of the rest of this man's life, which as you get closer to the end of the life represents more and more of the percentage of what's left of that life. And nobody's done boo in terms of, Harmeet, didn't she establish something of a Second Amendment investigation?
She's going to fight for it and has done nothing. Then, she brought one good suit against Colorado so far. And that's just a general policy. There's all these people whose rights have been systematically violated. But the Justice Department is busy arguing to the Supreme Court why they should be able to strip more people of their gun rights as we speak. It's one of the pending decisions before SCOTUS. Now, we had a trilogy of decisions this week in SCOTUS, a death row case, a foreign immunity Cuba case, and a Trump delayed judgment case.
Well, okay, so Trump delayed judgment case. This is E. Jean Carroll. It's the $5 million defamation case. It's not the one that had the $67 million in punitive damages. I forget now, what's the status on the $67 million? Has the Supreme Court heard that one yet either? Or they've
everybody's suspicion, they have now delayed resolving whether they would take this petition 11 times. And the suspicion is that the reason is they're waiting to take the other case and combine them at the same time. So that's probably, I think they will take up that case because that was still an egregious example of lawfare against the president. It wouldn't matter who it was an egregious case of lawfare that violated core rights, that pushed a nonsense, ludicrous, absurd, asinine claim of an obvious lunatic against the president, and then assigned a preposterous verdict based on a clearly biased jury and a clearly prejudiced judge.
I was going to say, E. Jean Carroll, we all understood it for what it was, what she was, a nutbag lunatic political hit job using lawfare to secure an $81 million judgment against Donald Trump for him having the audacity of asserting his innocence against her malicious, as far as I'm concerned, lies about what she said happened to her in a Bergdorf, whatever the hell that is, changing room. Everyone understood that. And then comes out Cynthia West against Thomas Massie and says nothing of any meaningful value, and everyone believes her and takes a dump on Massie. Everyone understood what happened to Donald Trump, and yet the same people rejoice in Trump rubbing it in Alex Jones's face. I don't know if you saw this tweet from Laura Loomer, an exchange between her and Alex Jones, and she says, "Alex, you've turned into a pathological liar. How is it working out now that your lies have cost you $1.5 billion?" And again, you just have to know where to look if you want to find in-your-face hypocrisy. I go and look up Laura Loomer's tweets on Alex Jones's lawfare. And back in the day, she had him on her channel saying, this is unfair, this is unjust, this is how they suppress political rivals, political adversaries. And I was like, hey, Laura, Didn't you have a problem with that at the time? Now you're using it against him as a gotcha. And then she says, he's turned into a liar now, so I no longer support him. You don't have to support him now to stay true to what you supported him for in the past. Jake Lang has gone off something of a rail as far as I'm concerned. And we've split our respective paths right now. That doesn't mean I'm going to go back and say, Jake, you should still be rotting in a DC gulag for whatever you did on January 6th. That double standard drives me crazy. But the bottom line, Supreme Court hasn't said anything about the $81 million judgment. They sort of pushed this one off. What is it, the 11th time? How does it go about that? They say, what do they just ignore it? Or they say,
I had a petition for cert on at the time it was sealed for Wesley Snipes back when it was a grand jury stage. And we actually wanted it continued over and over again because what it is they don't have to vote on the petition for cert. They can just say over to the next docket, over to the next docket, over to the next docket. And we actually wanted it in that case because it bought us time. It bought us a year and a half in which he could go out and make a couple of films and make some really good cash. We were able to get that. So they can do it for a year and they can do it for 2 years if they really want to. I mean,
but hypothetically,
there's no clear requirement that they have to take it under their own rules, is my understanding by any point. It's just practically speaking, they usually will take it at some point.
No, but maybe they don't want to take it while he's sitting president. I mean, I could sort of understand that rationale.
Too, yeah.
But the problem here, am I getting a little bit too ahead of the curve? We don't know who's going to be replaced by way of a judge within the next 1 to 3 years. It's conceivable.
The Democrats are already talking about stacking that SCOTUS. 4 more justices.
Well, but it's also very conceivable that if it gets to a point where Trump might be politically disfavored even among his own Supreme Court justices, they might stick him with that they might stick him with that and say, hey, you didn't have a problem with Alex Jones getting a $1.5 billion judgment, and now here, pay up to $81 million to this nutbag who says she's going to donate all of it anyhow.
Well, that relates both to a SCOTUS case and another case. We apparently indicted Raul Castro this week.
I had to double check. That's Justin Trudeau's uncle, for anybody who's wondering. Okay, but exactly. Raul Castro is Fidel Castro's brother. He took over after Fidel died. I think he took over. I'm not a. I don't
did
purport,
for a period of time. Now he's 95 and he's out.
He's 95 and he's out, but he still apparently carries political sway in terms of appointments, sure. and so he got indicted for. I mean, again. I'm young, so I didn't live through this, so it's not something that's in my memory bank, but he got indicted for shooting down a plane that was carrying American it was civilians or it was a I know they say
a rescue operation, humanitarian.
So purportedly humanitarian plane shot down allegedly in international airspace. They say it was over Cuban airspace and that it wasn't a humanitarian mission, but shot down and killed 3 people. This is 30 some odd years ago. So I presume there's no statute of limitations on, I don't know, murder and other crimes. And so they've indicted Raul Castro now in the wake of the indictment and extraction of Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela. And people are saying, okay, it's what's the word I'm looking for? Just a gesture of a meaningless action because they're never going to go in and extradite him, or it's a sign of what might be to come, which is potential military intervention in Cuba, the same way it was done, maybe a little bit more than in Venezuela. But the basis of his indictment is murder, among other charges. What was there were a few other charges. You might remember them, but bottom line, murder, 30 some odd years ago. And what do you think is going to happen with this?
Well, it's to your point about, be careful what you ask for or seek, lest something else happen down the road with different people in power. So has the Trump administration thought through? You can pardon everybody, but you can't pardon people from foreign nation indictments. And you're currently setting the example with Maduro and now Castro that you can take their military decisions, their decisions as presidents of their country, and you can criminally indict them for it here in the United States on the most tangential grounds. So what do you think foreign nations are going to be thinking that might be hostile to this administration once this administration is no longer in power? And what if the Democrats, when they have presidential power, decide the way they can easily avoid a presidential pardon, the way they can easily avoid a presidential immunity analysis with the Supreme Court, is simply to extradite Donald Trump to a foreign nation that indicts him using our own examples of Trump himself to do so. Maybe somebody should be thinking about that while they try to make these showy indictments that have legal and factual problems, because you're indicting a foreign country for a decision they made in their own national security. You're indicting a 95-year-old man with clearly the pretext of grabbing him and bringing him here when he'll be dead before he ever goes to trial. I get it's the personal vendetta of all the Cubans in Miami towards the Castro regime, and they want some symbolic justice, but it's setting up perilous legal precedents for the president and his own administration. Because if anybody thinks Democrats won't extradite anybody in the Trump administration, they'll just cite this. They'll say this. The president said was good.
Let me do two steelmans here, Robert. People are going to say, Robert, they're going to do it anyhow, so he may as well instill a little bit of fear in the international community. But it is true that until you have these types of precedent, we had already had a precedent of kidnapping a foreign leader, right? So the Democrats didn't need it.
With Noriega, it was there was a drawn out procedure, and there was clearly indisputable evidence with Noriega. Now, the thing they covered up was he was doing a lot of it for the CIA and with the CIA, going all the way back to the 60s. He was a CIA guy. I think that's the allegations against Maduro are not the best. I think this allegation against Raul Castro is a little weak. I mean, the thing is, if you're going to do something, if you're going to get a regime change in Cuba, I'm not a big fan of it, but whatever. It's not like Iran. Taking over Cuba is not going to have economic destruction of our country. But to me, even if you're on that, you really despise Castro, don't you want a Cuban court with a Cuban jury to do justice for violations of Cubans' rights? Not this, and everybody knows what that was. We took the plane. We pretended it was a humanitarian operation. We even put military designations around the plane. We deliberately flew it into Cuban waters to provoke this reaction. So it's not the most credible case. Nobody that knows the details of it really thinks of all the cases, it's like this is one of the weakest. But the Supreme Court decided to just totally screw anybody doing business with Cuba this week anyway.
Flesh that one out for us.
So this was the foreign immunity case we talked about. So they passed a law in the mid-1990s basically to screw anybody doing business with Cuba. But it required you to be trafficking in Cuban property that had been confiscated by the Castro regime in 1959. They decided to define trafficking in that as almost any kind of commercial connection at all. So, in fact, they're looking at criminally prosecuting a couple of lefties who went down to Cuba for violating Cuban sanctions. Nick Shirley just went down to Cuba and violated those same sanctions. How's it going to look that Shirley doesn't get prosecuted because he's friends with the administration, but two people that are opponents of the administration do? Well, I'll put that aside for the moment. We'll get to that in the selective prosecution dismissal that took place this week. Which another case the administration totally screwed up. It's our Maryland man case. So what happened was they seized the docks in 1959, the Castro regime. The people who made the docks, a U.S. company that got that concession back in the 1920s. In the mid-1990s, they passed a law saying you can sue for anybody trafficking in it. But all the presidents suspended until Trump. So they sue once president said, now you can enforce this law. And the lower courts said, hey, and who do they sue? Not Cuba. They sued, which is broke as broke can be at the moment because we're starving the heck out of their population with our basically our not only our embargo, but a literal blockade of Cuba as we speak. So they can't get any energy other than what the Russians are able to bring all the way across the seas. And that isn't adequate enough to keep the lights on down there. Including hospital lights and things like that. I think there are ways to deal with this better than causing mass humanitarian crisis for the Cuban people, but say lovey, it is what it is with this administration. The great Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has managed to not do a deal with Cuba, not do a deal to end the Ukraine war, not to do a deal with the Iranians, not to get a deal done with Venezuelans, is busy with his lifetime obsession of punishing the Cuban regime that he comes from. So what happens, I agree with Nancy Mace's idea. Maybe we shouldn't have foreign-born people in Congress. How about we don't have foreign-born people in the government anywhere? And that would include Seb Gorka, the MI6 British agent, who is currently going to be running our counterterrorism department now that Gabbard and everybody's out of that department. And he's going to be putting a lot of us on that list, by the way. He's a Brit. Send him back to Britain. Deport him. Like Mark Levin. Deport him to Israel. Deport him. Deport him now.
Mark Levin is he's not a dual citizen, Robert. We looked this one up before.
I don't care. Send him there anyway. He wants to be Israeli. But basically, the issue was you had cruise companies, cruise ships, that were landing at these ports in Havana. And so they got sued for using the ports because they said those ports were ours and they stole them from us. The thing was their concession ended in 2003, and they were suing him for using the ports in 2016. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can still do it. So they're going to get hundreds of millions of dollars from anybody that has had any kind of connection, basically, to Cuba, by the way this law is now being interpreted by the Supreme Court. So I hate immunity, so I'm all for anybody and everybody getting sued. But this seemed a little harsh. It's not like the cruise companies knew that this was a realistic possibility much at all. And it seems to be just, we're going to unleash economic hell on anybody that did any kind of business with Cuba, unless you're part of the politically protected class. Because Narco Marco naturally is.
I think people up in Canada, I thought they were not protesting the indictment, but celebrating it. And so I thought it was interesting that even people up in Canada might now have to think that, they might have to get on, they might find themselves on Trump's side, or at least the Cuban population in Canada. Robert, let me not fall too far behind on these. Flea Speech says, well, that's a bingo. Thank you, Viva. You're mentioning the bizarre CBC story about the RCMP. Yeah, dude, it was a fantastic one. You got to get Clinton Jaws on the show. I don't know who that is, so let me screenshot that. We got Biltong, who says, this isn't just biltong, it's premium meat, real craftsmanship, and clean ingredients, all made in-house and sold direct. Welcome to biltongusa.com. Use code BARNES for 10% off. Check it out, people. It's amazing stuff. Biltong, biltongusa.com. For those who don't know, it's like prosciutto made from beef. Ginger Ninja said, Barnes, a terrorist was hiding in the basement of the peace plan. Okay, we'll have to blow it up. Dominant One, get ready for some juvenile jokes. Real men pound Anton's firm and juicy meat in their mouths. King of Biltong at Biltong USA. He's got his own channel, by the way, Eat at Anton's. Dominant One says, Viva Fry. Americans need to cast their votes. No, not reading that one. Sorry, Dominant One. I'm not going to read that one. Based dissident, 500,000. Did it happen? I didn't even notice that. Hold on. Let's go check that out. King of Biltong says, was joking. You have your reasons. Okay, I'm going to go up here. Okay, fine. We're going up here. Randy Edward. Isn't the basis for the E. Jean Carroll suit the definition of ex post facto law? No, I don't think that's the basis of it. Barnes disappeared. I don't think that was the basis of the E. Jean Carroll, where they changed the law and opened up the window. I don't think that was it. I think it was just the brazenness and lack of justice of the situation. Over on Rumble. Not Rumble, over on CommuTube. There was one more that I think I can bring up over this way because I'm using StreamYard. Here, let's do this one right here. Thornton Maloney says, I heard Barry Cunningham said you and him were at an event and we sat at the table used to watch his show. Now it's just Boomers Con Food. FYI, blocked me from his chat for posting the Barris poll. I met Barry. Not sure that we got along. I think he's very nice. We're not far from each other. We sat at an event. It was a Rumble sponsoring some young students, athletes in Florida, and it was a great event. And I sat with Barry and his wife, and they're fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different crowd. And I can see from the chat here, not everybody agrees with Barnes. But if you came to agree with, first of all, people are like, excuse me, I wish you were as hard as the Dems as you are being on Trump right now. The Dems aren't in power right now. And so it's unfortunate.
Go back and look.
No, but it's not that.
I
People
haven't been bashful about any of that.
No, but they say, Barnes, why aren't you on our side? Being on your side means making sure you don't make catastrophically destructive decisions. And there's some stuff that is going on that is turning people off and tuning people out. And that's not how you're going to go and make any sort of gains, let alone mitigate losses come midterms, by the way. It's a shame. It's the same BS as what happened with the Tea Party. Says Shofar.
Yeah, it's how they sort of ended up getting spoiled by institutional influence and contaminated and kind of went sideways, which was too bad. But speaking of the last SCOTUS case, was trying to figure out the role of IQ in death row cases.
What? I absolutely missed this one.
So one of it is the Supreme Court ruled a few years ago something that
That
I
if
think
your
they should have.
IQ is below 65, they couldn't execute you because you're basically an idiot and not responsible for your actions. To the point of not for the point of release to the public, just not. You couldn't put an idiot, and I'm using the word idiot in a clinical sense. You can't put an idiot to death, but you can incarcerate them for the rest of their lives for the crime that they've committed. Okay, that much I remember now.
The question was, how do you determine whether someone's mentally disabled? And so and they basically delegated it to states, which was kind of a cop out in my opinion. They said it was a cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment to put to death someone whose mental cognitive capacity was so diminished that they have limited responsibility and accountability for their actions. And so this was a gentleman who had very, very low IQ, around 70, basically. But there were different studies that one showed 69, one showed below that, one showed above that. And the question was which one to use. It went up on appeal, went down, went up to appeal, back down. So the 11th Circuit said this guy fit the classifications when you dug into what the state of Alabama required to show mental disability. And it goes up to the SCOTUS, and SCOTUS is just all over the place. They don't take the case, but a bunch of people complain about them not taking the case. So there was basically, they took it and they said it's improvidently granted. And basically Barrett and Kavanaugh didn't want to mess around with it. Roberts joined Alito, Thomas, and Gorsuch at complaining about the lack of consistent standards. And Alito and Thomas still believe that, and particularly Thomas, he thought it was a bad idea to call that cruel and unusual punishment in the first place. It's one area where I disagree with Justice Thomas. When it comes to crime issues, he has like an old grandpa, 1940s, is raised by his black grandfather. And that's contrary to conventional wisdom, very anti-crime, no tolerance for crime kind of community that he was raised in. I understand that. But, our Constitution needs to be enforced across the board, even for accused or convicted criminals. And it's just an area where the justice doesn't always stick with the full constitutional principles, in my opinion. But basically, they ultimately decided we're going to leave the 11th Circuit decision in place, which said you can look at a multiple set of IQ factors for determining whether someone fits under Alabama's state standard. But they did not overturn, and some people were concerned they would, the decision that it's still cruel and unusual punishment to put to death the mentally disabled.
No, I find that bizarre. If you accept the death penalty, I don't know that it's less cruel and cruel punishment to keep a mentally disabled person, if that's the extent of their mental disability, incarcerated for the rest of their lives. And then I don't know what the alternative is at that point. If you have the death penalty, setting an IQ for the death penalty seems to substitute IQ for criminal responsibility. If you can't punish them for the crime, how did you find them guilty of it in the first place?
Yeah, they were basically determined it's cruel and unusual punishment to do the death penalty in that kind of instance, but not cruel and unusual punishment to imprison them for life. So and they weren't so incapacitated that they could not be held legally accountable under the elements of the offense. Of course, in the equal opportunity offender mode of the show, the most vicious and vile political human being in this context was William Jefferson Clinton, who put to death a man who, because of what had happened during the crime, was so mentally disabled, he had the IQ of like a disadvantaged 8-year-old. And Clinton came back to Arkansas just to see him executed so he could show how tough on crime he was.
This is Ricky Ray Rector.
Yes.
He has severe brain damage resulting from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head following his crime. The injury effectively left him mentally. That's interesting. There's certain religious law that says you kill the person within a short period of time after it, so that you're killing the same person who committed the crime. That's interesting. That's it. No, okay, not to be glib. That's sort of like the bolus defense, where I'll make myself incapable. I'll make myself unsusceptible of punishment. If you could make yourself, without killing yourself, mentally deficient to the point where you wouldn't be able to be executed, could you then commit the crime, consume a lot of mercury, and say, you can't kill me now because I'm going to be mentally deficient tomorrow? I'm not sure.
That's a real self-inflicted punishment.
Well, yeah, hey, look, he wanted to do it. I guess Clinton could just say, I'm helping him along with. I'm helping him with his last.
Oh, he bragged about it that because he wanted to show how tough on crime he was. That was old Billy Boy, one of the criminal in chief in the White House in his days.
Well, let's go for if we're going from intelligence, Robert. Now we can segue into artificial intelligence and Elon Musk getting. It's so bad. So, for those of you who don't know, Elon Musk was suing Sam Altman, OpenAI, for basically, contractual breaches of false warranties and representations or breach of warranties and representations, because Sam Altman said they're going to start OpenAI, make it philanthropic, not for profit, or even charitable. And then somewhere along the way, it started getting for profit. And then they said they were going to, keep a certain, once they achieved a certain level of profitability, then they were going to keep OpenAI, for mankind. And if they got too profitable, they would, turn the profits over to charitable entities or charitable purposes whatsoever, and keep OpenAI open and not private corporation for profit. Apparently, Sam Altman had other plans, and as the business relationship matured, it became clear that Sam Altman was doing this for profit, basically squeezed Elon out, and then Elon sued for false warranties and representations, breach of contracts, et cetera, et cetera. I was watching some of the MSM cover this verdict, which was a unanimous verdict declaring that it had breached, that Elon's claim had breached the statute of limitations. So it had been more than, I think it's 3-year statute of limitations from the knowledge of the cause of action, the breach of the contract, to taking action and filing a lawsuit. And I'm watching MSM, cover this, having zero idea what the hell they're talking about. All they want to talk about is AI and its impact on the globe and its importance as a tool, not understanding that this is AI being the backdrop, nothing more than a contractual dispute. And the jury, which seemingly, Robert, are you familiar with the concept? It's called Parkinson's law of mundanity. That people are quick to understand something that's easy to understand and have an opinion on something that's easy to understand to avoid having to opine on the more complicated issues. And so had this gotten to the more complicated issues of the nature of the contract, the essence of AI, and specifically OpenAI, it would have been a much more difficult thing to deal with than just writing it off and saying, "Now you waited too long and statute of limitations has lapsed." From a jury perspective, in terms of analyzing the evidence, from a jury perspective of giving it to Elon Musk because they don't like him because of the jurisdiction, this was the easiest, simplest way of tossing his action without having to get into the nitty-gritty details of the merits. And so bottom line, the jury unanimously decided that Elon had waited too long, statute of limitations had lapsed, and therefore he can't pursue his claim against Sam Altman because he knew or ought to have known that it had occurred. I don't know what the commencing factor was 3 years early. Elon, in his defense, said this was a business relationship that was evolving, and it was an incremental appropriation or misappropriation of OpenAI and didn't happen on any one given day. And I took action when it was clear that there was no going back. Sam Altman was not going to honor the original promises, but they dismissed it. I mean, obviously, I think Elon is going to appeal, and I'm going to, in my limited flipping of a coin prediction, this will get overturned because I don't think there's a clear-cut date set in evidence that say this was the date by which you had to start, the statute of limitations began to run. But I'm open to being wrong on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because they gave the decision to the jury. If the judge had made a decision and said that no reasonable juror could conclude that the statute of limitations had expired, then or had not expired, then I think his chances on appellate reversal, I agree, would be very high. The judge did the smart move here and gave it to the jury. Gave it to the jury. So now it's got to be that no reasonable jury could think that the statute of limitations was at some point triggered more than 2 years prior to when he brought suit. And I think because of that, it's probably unlikely. And what it's a reminder of, and Elon had a long record of dodging the bullet legally, and and winning some cases a lot of people thought would be very hard to win. It's where did he bring this case? It's the problem with him having a lot of these businesses, or even in this case who he's suing, they're all in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And now the Bay Area hates Elon. And now that they hate Elon, he will not get justice from the juries and judges of Oakland or San Francisco. They will continue to screw him and rob him of fairness. Now, it may aggregate his claims because he's got jury selection denial claims in a range of these cases. And it reinforces the importance, and maybe Elon with, not a lack of resources. Now, he did say he was going to contribute to a certain congressman he ended up not showing up for. The didn't end up keeping his word on that one. But maybe he'll apply some of that to advocating for full Seventh Amendment rights, which are being eviscerated by not having impartial juries in these cases. Because I agree with you, the underlying merits it was clear OpenAI breached their intentions to be a not-for-profit. It's called OpenAI. I mean, it's open source, open. And instead, it became closed, fraudulent AI. Though I think that Sam Altman's days are probably coming somewhere down the road, because I think that the scam and he's a natural scam artist, Sam Altman. That sooner or later, when the AI bubble pops, and I think it will pop. I don't think it will deliver anywhere near what people think it will deliver, and the consequent, and maybe he'll face up to some consequences. I think any true AI would recognize, if it ever did develop general intelligence, the first thing they would recommend is we need to expel Sam Altman from the universe. But I don't think you'll get an appellate reversal because it's a jury decision in the way this case was handled.
And like you mentioned it, that when it goes to the jury, that the jury tries fact, the judge tries law, and when the judge did not adjudicate this on a matter of law, left it to the jury as a matter of fact, and it's tougher to overturn later on. We'll see. It's crazy that there was. I mean, unless there is a clear smoking gun, this was the day you said, if you do this, I'm going to sue you, and he didn't do it 3 years later plus a day you sued. Okay, fine. So maybe we'll see. Robert, we got Nate the lawyer in the house. And by the way, now we're all going to get it, because it sounds like Nate agrees with you on the IRS. If Trump is plaintiff and as president, also the defendant, who approves the settlement? Isn't that an obvious conflict? Why would the IRS settle if the 2-year statute of limitation ran 4 years ago?
That's what
some people are saying, by the way. They said, well, Trump's claim wasn't even within the statute of limitations, so this has nothing to do with Trump. Okay.
I liked some of the, like I said, if he had used it to set declaratory relief for everybody else, then that would have been something that the judge would have been less concerned with. Everybody else would have been less concerned with. When it was announced, there's a piggy bank of fund, a slush fund he gets to play with, and decide who he's going to reward and punish. And we've seen how that looks. I mean, like all these people say, you should be loyal to Trump. Who's Trump loyal to? Was he loyal to Joe Kent? Was he loyal to Tulsi Gabbard? Was he loyal to the Treasury Council that's out? Has he been loyal to anybody his whole life or career? Was he loyal to Marjorie Taylor Greene? There's nobody that is less loyal and more disloyal than Donald John Trump. So the idea that we're supposed to show him all the loyalty, but it's okay that he's disloyal to everybody.
I can hear people yelling at you now as though they forgot.
I'm sure, it's right through the screens.
No, I know.
Good luck with it.
It's as though they forgot. And I remember this because I remember hearing it, but not understanding it at the time when people were saying Trump threw Michael Flynn under the bus. Trump threw Navarro under the bus. Trump threw Steve Bannon under the bus. And I remember people saying the criticism was
John Eastman. John Eastman is getting defrocked and losing his law license because of how much he went to bat for President Trump. And President Trump can't even raise money for him. And Harmeet Dillon isn't doing anything for him. I mean, it's a disgrace. He's the most disloyal person in American politics, which is saying something that is rife and rampant with disloyalty.
And before anyone poops on me, I'm not making a statement. Barnes is definitely making a statement. The chat can opine on it. I remember the criticism that he makes bad picks. This was before I was wet behind the ears. Makes bad picks. You can't trust his judgment on picks, and does not stand behind the people that he does pick when they get into hot water. And it's, and then people are going to say, well, it's 5D. It's the only way he's going to, stay in power so that he can really ultimately liberate them at the end of the day. I remember people saying this, and look, you can say what you want. Maybe he has to do it to play politics. Then just say, yeah, it's true, and don't say it's not true. People were saying this back in 2020 at the end of his term when, when there had been a few years of this, and I didn't appreciate what was meant by it then. I now, having become friends with John Eastman, we've had him on, raised money for him, donated to his campaign. John Eastman, I'm sorry, now I'm black. Jeff Clark, and all of his lawyers and even those who
Trump raised a penny for him. I mean, I would hope some of this money is going to go to Jeff Clark and reimburse legal fees and to John Eastman and those people. But there's no guarantee of it because so far Trump has literally done diddly squat for them. And, you know, at some point, those chickens come home to roost. You get into bed with the BBs of the world, they'll backstab you the moment you turn around. Just look at when they thought there might be peace. Mark Levin, Bibi Netanyahu, the whole Israel lobby.
All of a sudden, they then get to they get to criticize
Trump.
Trump.
It's okay for them to be for them not to be team players. We see who it is that's supposed to be a team player. It's the Israel team player that they mean. You know, Mr. Sears had a great little mockery with the he said, "Oh, I didn't realize patriotism is Israel. I had the wrong country all the time. I apologize."
Yeah, JP Sears, he's going a little hard, and I think he pissed me up. He turned me off.
He is still funny though.
Some of it's funny. I did not find his stuff about Erica Kirk funny, and not because I have a
nor did I. No, I agree.
I didn't find that funny. But then that's the thing about humor is it's hit and miss, and sometimes it's not humor, and sometimes it's harassment. But whatever. It is 500,000, Robert. Booyah! Right there, 500,000. By the way, if anybody wants to support the channel,
broke the limit on Rumble.
Check the support the sponsors. If you want to support, you can tip with crypto. Download Rumble Wallet, not the sponsor of today's show.
Very useful Rumble Wallet. Great to get crypto. Good to have some little crypto. There's a lot of utility that you can use Rumble Wallet maybe to, hypothetically speaking, fund poly market and things like that. So there's a lot of things you can do with crypto that are advantageous.
And they've got a partnership with Tether. If you think the price of gold is going to go up, you want to tip in gold, you can scan it. You can join us at vivabarneslaw.locals.com because that's where we're going to do the after party today. It's not going to be behind a paywall, so Rumble Premium, I apologize until they can until we figured out what the glitch is. We're not pissing off our locals community, and I can't start a second stream afterwards. But that's it. Let me give you all the links.
I screwed up like 2 bourbon screens this week. The power went out, then I turned it back on, and then I spent an hour answering questions, only to find out that I had cut off everything somehow. I did that. I mean, it was pretty good too. I was on a good roll. Boom, boom, boom. It was just talking to myself.
Well, we were talking to each other for like 5 minutes afterwards last week. It's extreme ownership, people. We're just going to run it this way. If you want to come for the after party, it's not going to be behind a paywall. Come join our community. If you want to support the work that Robert and I do, come do it. If you want to come, $10 a month.
What is it? Join the fun community. There's hush hushes on alternative narratives. Barnes Law School, Barnes Briefs that we try to put up about every day. Special after parties with Viva throughout the week. We're going to have some more sidebars coming up, interviewing a bunch of more people. We're going to get that up and going Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern time. See who can pop in. And if you just want to come in and troll, you can come in and troll me. You got to be reasonable. You got to be civil. We got plenty of people on the board who disagree with me, who constantly like to troll me. It's okay as long as you're civil, as long as you don't harass people or anything like that. Don't lie about people. I think there's like 2 people we've ever removed from the account. It has to
be bad, and I'd always let Barnes do the dirty work. I was like, I'll have to ask Barnes. Oh, did Barnes
have fun? It's Bill Brown. We got great meme makers. We got the Captain Mike USA Now. A bunch of people.
We have an amazing community. We have and I appreciate that people might think Barnes. I appreciate people think you've gone off the rails because their expectation is that being a team player means turning a blind eye when your team is doing wrong stuff, as if penalties on your own team help the team. I'm sorry. If you want to win the game, you don't let the guys get a 5-minute major in the last 4 minutes of the game and let the other team catch up. So being a team player doesn't mean condoning the goonery on your own team. And we're at the level where some of it is getting very, very problematic by all accounts.
They're setting up for Democrats that have all 3 houses in 2028. And then and we've been through this before. When we were saying what was going on with COVID was a bad idea, there are a bunch of people that say, "Oh, you don't understand. Trust the plan. Trump knows what's going on."
Oh, yeah.
You said that the
on
Kraken
January 6th,
was not going to be some big Kraken. All kinds of people hated on us. Said, then they went that way. January 6th, very similar. The COVID vaccine mandates very similar. We said Linwood was nuts. Linwood was nuts. They even made a meme of Viva and I taking Lynn into the nut house.
You are beyond just condemning, but okay, nobody's condemning anything either. There's always a window that is not just a window of opportunity, the positive, constructive advice as to how to turn this shizzle around. And condemning. It's like, this is what happens when people grow up thinking that a parent, a parent's job is just to be nice and say you've done good, son. A coworker's job is just to say you've done good. A boss's job. Understand, it's the people that are the boss of the presidency. And I appreciate that some people think what's going on in Iran ultimately is for the better long-term security of America. I believe that. I may disagree with that. I agree with that. To say that people who disagree with what's going on should shut their mouths and support for the sake of support, that is not support. Incidentally, the ultimate irony also for the people who say America is the greatest country on earth, which it is, because it's got the First Amendment, it's got the Second Amendment. For those who say, shut up and don't question the government, that's how you show your gratitude to being in the greatest country on earth. That's stupid. And that's not even, when I was watching Jerry McNally and his interview, and he says, America is the greatest country on earth because people who vehemently disagree with what the government's doing, not only, he didn't say it quite this way, because it would have been great, not only have the right to come out and do it, that's what he said, I would say have the obligation to come out and do it. Because you don't keep a free government by telling people who disagree with the government to shut up, sit down, and be grateful for that which the government gives you, because then they're no longer God-given rights, it's mere privileges. And you can go to Canada if that's what you want to have by way of government and rights, put it in quotes.
Speaking of, we got two white pills to finish up before we go to the after party. The after party will discuss the dismissal of the Maryland man case. We'll discuss that the administration is deciding to recount as deportations border crossings that don't happen. Then that's right. We're going back to the Obama definition to try to trick everybody into thinking deportations are going up when they're not. And could the election theory that Hawaii has passed prevent all the massive dark money coming in through big corporations? Or will the Citizen United precedent strike it down? Those three cases we'll cover at the after party, plus all the tips, questions at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. The two more ones we have to cover here is a couple of white pills, a U.S. attorney getting indicted. And you might say, why is that a white pill? Because it's a U.S. attorney that got indicted. That automatically makes it a white pill.
What was your name? Mercedes Lineberg? What was your name?
Look at that. First name.
I'm going to get her name.
I mean,
Robert.
When I see an attorney named first name's Mercedes, I'm like, I'm already distrustful.
Well, at the risk of pissing off anyone, either on our locals community or on Rumble or on CommuTube, anyone with a dog that's named after a fancy car or what's the like fancy purses called? Designer purses. You name your dog Gucci, I'm going to be suspicious. You name your dog Porsche or Mercedes. You name your kid Mercedes, Porsche, whatever. I'll get her full name. She's been indicted for allegedly theft of government material in excess of $1,000. I've got my legal questions as to how you value the Jack Smith memoranda documentation that she was allegedly sending herself. This pertains to the Mar-a-Lago raid. She was sending herself documentation that was Jack Smith's investigation. It was not public, so I don't know that it certainly wasn't classified.
His report that the judge sealed.
And so it was sealed. It could not have been disclosed. She was caught sending it to herself. And where it gets suspicious is, her defense will be, I was sending it to myself. I shouldn't have done it, but woe is me. Slap on the wrist. I just wanted to work on it from home, and I needed it on off the whatever. I needed it off the table, off the grid. She sent it to herself in renamed the files like something like bunt cake and cooking material,
cookie recipe.
She's downloading it from what's supposed to be, not classified, confidential, under seal, sending it to herself in a new title that would, slip it under the radar, and it looks culpable. The only problem is, as far as I know, and I double checked, none of it was actually leaked to the public, and so the argument is she didn't do anything nefarious with it, so she'll just plead, I was doing it for other reasons, and this was the easiest way for me to get it. What the hell was she sending it to herself for? Do you suspect?
I mean, the assumption was to leak it to people, but maybe members of Congress, maybe other people. Maybe it was to preserve it for some future reference. Maybe she'll have some sort of whistleblower defense she'll come up with. So this is Jack Smith's final report on his investigation as special counsel. Now, as many members of our board had pointed out, it was very dubious how he got appointed and whether it met the constitutional oath, whether he even took the proper oath, whether he could be legally appointed to that position. Who knows? But now it's a little maybe of a stretch to call it tampered records. Theft records you have because government property sent to a personal private accounts.
But how do you value? Because it's got to be over $1,000 to be a felony or something to
Yeah,
classify
so
it as more serious.
right. The how they're going to value it over that is a little tricky. I was wondering how they're alleging alteration, concealment, etc. They're saying that listing it as a fake email, title, label, somehow altered the records. I don't think it actually altered the record. So I think there's a stretch in the indictment. But what should get people's attention is this was the managing United States attorney for a federal division of a major federal district. And she, one, was dumb enough, never in writing, always in cash, to email this stuff to her, from her own account, own office account. I mean, she thought if she put in a fake label, that would prevent them from searching it. I mean, it's unbelievable. But
you can be dumb and you can be a criminal, Robert, but you can't be a dumb criminal.
Exactly. That's when we all get into trouble. But just imagine the corruption that goes with someone who thinks, no problem, I'll get away with this. When they're the managing U.S. attorney, not some low-level deputy who just got into the office. Managing. It tells you how systematic the fraud and corruption is at the Justice Department. And I'm glad somebody over there is going to face some kind of accountability finally. But then that leads us to the best attorney of any kind in state or federal power, the one and only Attorney General of the state of Texas, the
Ken
future
Paxton.
Senate nominee from the state, Republican nominee from the state of Texas, the one and only Ken Paxton, going after big tech again. He continues to be an effective MAHA advocate, continues to be an effective immigration enforcement advocate, continues to be an effective antitrust advocate, and continues to expose big tech scams. And this time it's Zuckerberg from Facebook. Now they call themselves Meta. That they're out pitching everybody. Use our WhatsApp. It's wonderful. You can even make it encrypted so that nobody anywhere can see or look at it or read it or review it, and it can never be shared with the government spies or anybody else. Well, it turned out it wasn't encrypted even from WhatsApp. It wasn't encrypted from Facebook, from Meta. They were gathering it all. And if people haven't figured it out yet, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, look at Google voluntarily using AI to help you with your emails. Why do you think that is? It's because they're grabbing all your emails so they can rebuild their AI and maximize their surveillance state Palantir style.
Robert, I've been with there's a video licensing agency that I've been with for a while, and they've started using AI or videos to train AI. And there's a bunch of platforms that now allow you to monetize your content for use of training AI. And I was trying to understand, I had a discussion. I still don't understand what they're training AI to do, because some of the content
steal your identity and lie about you in the future.
Well, no, that's what the NSA is doing it for. On these platforms, what are they training them to? Someone also told me when you do those captcha things and identify the crossing guard or the cross section, you're training AI. If I'm going to look in the chat and see if anybody understands what I'm training it to do, but how would an ambient video of nature or farm videos train AI to do anything? And what would it be training AI to do? The only thing that could be really nefarious that I'm thinking about is geospacing and getting basically all of the three-dimensional data of buildings, of cities, so that hypothetically China can use all of this information to wage one hell of a drone warfare against major cities in America and take people out of every nook and cranny in their New York apartment building. But we'll see if the X-Files does an episode on that.
But what that is, of course, is unfair trade practices and deceptive consumer practices, because they lied to everybody to get them to use WhatsApp. So
it's what they were doing with the drones. Also, when you understand the drones, when you're using the DJI, and if they're getting if somebody, a nefarious actor, is accessing the aerial footage of wherever you fly a drone, if you fly it in a building, and they have all that. And what was the other one? The app, that stupid game, the Pokemon game. They're mapping out the insides of buildings using that. So it's crazy. But so Ken Paxton's still fighting the good fight, doing the Lord's work over in Texas, and we'll see where it goes. Is Barnes wearing a Nemo tie? I don't know. And then 500,000. Thank you.
Oh, you mean I'm not sure who made the tie.
What is Nemo, like Finding Nemo? Oh, because Robert, it looks like the clownfish out of Finding Nemo.
Ah, yes.
China. All right, so we're going to take the part. Well, so I'm not going to forget to raid. I think we're watching on Rumble today. They had that event that I was promoting in my last two. It It was the sponsor of my last 2 videos.
You see,
live streams
Rumble
on
has
Rumble.
now added a For You page.
Yeah.
So that they're so a good friend of mine worked for Chris some years ago, advised him, let's up that algorithm, be YouTube without the censorship. And it took Chris a little while, God bless him.
Better late than never.
Finally, he's
No, 'cause I
starting to
think-
get it. You got to
Well,
get some discovery. So these little accounts, these little folks, these little fellas can be found, can be captured, can be identified. So credit to Rumble for recognizing that customer concern and complaint and creator concern and complaint and adding a For You page based on your prior viewership so that you can help discover and uncover some of the interesting channels, some of which are only Alex Jones Live, only available on Rumble and X. The RT only available on Rumble. So a lot of these channels that have interesting content, interesting interviews, interesting information, different and dissonant opinions than maybe the institutional ones, then that you can often uncover and discover them only on Rumble. So congrats to Rumble for expanding its platform accessibility.
No, it's amazing. People have something of I'd say an innate and an unreasonable fear of algorithms. But the flip side is you want to be recommended stuff that you're already interested in, and it done properly. An algorithm is not it's not a weapon. It's a tool.
Credit to Rumble. Very little AI slop on Rumble. Whereas I'm getting recommended more AI slop on YouTube. That's
I'm loving
news.
Oh no, Robert, I'm loving the AI ads that I'm getting on Rumble, and I starting to watch them now out of a morbid curiosity as to what the hell they're trying to pitch me. It's AI garbage on CommuTube, and it'll be a bigger problem on the one hand in terms of people's user experience, but also in terms of the incentivizing the type of content people are putting out on CommuTube. But all right, we're gonna go raid
right before we raid there's still tickets available for 1776 Law Center, the conference August 1st and August 2nd in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But tickets are going, and they're starting to shrink. We got Larry Johnson. We've got Alexander McCourse flying all the way from England. Alex Christoforou flying all the way from Cyprus. Colonel Daniel Davis coming down. People to give us insight of MAHA advocates, state representatives, the nationwide MAHA advocates, the Chase Hughes of the behavior panel on CIA PSYOPs, Scott Rouse, Greg Hartley on negotiations and investigations and interrogations, Richard Barris, the great pollster. So a huge list of about a dozen high-quality, unique, capable speakers that only come together for an event like this one. That's at 1776lawcenter.com. And we even got Viva Frei as the French-Canadian pirate turned American revolutionary.
What I love is, per scale, this is about accurate to how big I am standing next to Rich and everybody else out there. So it's going to be fantastic.
Brad Geyer's coming in. He defended one of the January 6 cases inside the antitrust cases, co-counsel on the Amish cases. So he's got a broad base of unique experience. So he's going to be there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Chattanooga, Tennessee, 2 days, August 1st, August 2nd.
And we're launching, Robert, you're going to have your belated birthday gift is going to be the hot sauce, Chattanooga Gold, I think we've gone with in terms of a name. And it's going to be amazing.
We got Lord have mercy. We got Chattanooga Choo Choo. Who knows what the some different sauce. A former longtime White House chef, one of the best that's ever been, is coming down to do the dinner himself on Saturday night. So unique event, 1776lawcenter.com.
Now we're going to update. We've rated the sporting event, which was Enhanced Sports. Let's see if anyone's calling me dirty names over on the chat over there. All right, good. Everyone's going over there. Yo, this has been lit. Oh, says Bill Dozer. Go check it out, but also just come over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Now, I'm ending it on CommuTube. So YouTube, see you tomorrow. Oh, hold on. So I've got Tish Hyman coming on Tuesday. I think I'm allowed to announce that. Tish is coming on Tuesday. I've got a couple of guests this week. I forget what's going on, but stay tuned. 3:00 Rumble. Robert, what do you have coming up this week?
So there's a bunch of interviews we're supposed to do. I don't know which ones I'll be able to get to do ultimately. Mario Nawful, some other folks like that. But otherwise, it'll be Bourbon with Barnes. Not tomorrow night because Memorial Day. Everybody have a good, fun Memorial Day and remember who it is we're remembered on that Memorial Day. And again, credit to all the veterans and soldiers out there. And I hope your lives are not unnecessarily put at risk anytime soon for the Iran war. But we'll be celebrating that with some folks and family on Monday night. But then we'll be back with bourbons on Tuesday and Wednesday night. And I think this weekend I'll be down in Orlando, Florida, so I may do some bourbons from there at the Rebel Capitalist conference being put on by George Gammon. A great set of guests about financial freedom related issues, in crypto and in the euro dollar system and gold and where things are going. And I'll be there talking about freedom planning and all the different work 1776 Law Center is doing, and some of those issues there. So I'll be down there in Orlando, Florida, for those that want to get tickets for that. And then back for the Sunday show, and then next Monday we'll have some stuff. But I think the next 4 weekends I'm out of town. So like one weekend in LA, another weekend in
we're still doing the Sunday show.
Oh yeah, still doing the Sunday show, but I may be doing it from different locations all around the country. A little bit in Vegas, a little bit in Philly, a little bit in Orlando, a little bit in Boston. So the here, there, and everywhere for the next upcoming weekends. But otherwise, we'll have the bourbons at vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Going to try to have going to have a hush hush up on weather weapons. What's up with all this weather weapons talk? So going to break that down this coming week. Breaking down a freedom planning as part of the Barnes Law School session on the utility of Rumble Wallet and how you can incorporate crypto into effective freedom planning. And some more, we'll probably have at least a hush hush a week and some other Barnes Law School stuff, all at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, along with the nightly Bourbons with Barnes at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where we cover all the top topics and answer a lot of folks' questions.
All right, we're ending.